I'll call the May 16, 2011 Brattleboro Development Review Board meeting to order. Note that we have 6 members of the board tonight. We may be getting possibly one more, so we're a little short of our maximum number of 7, which gives me the opportunity.
Here we go.
There we go. There's Mr. Valenti. We will have 7 for all but one matter. In one matter, I do need to recuse myself, and for that matter, we will only have 6 members. By statute, in the state of Vermont, Development Review Board matters, in order to pass, to be approved, need to have 4 affirmative votes, even if we have fewer than 7 members sitting for the matter. When that matter comes up, and I think that matter pertains to Mr. Minnis. If Mr. Minnis wishes to continue the matter to an additional later date when we have 7 members, we're happy to do that, or we can move forward with the 6 that we have. Thank you for coming to the Brattleboro Development Review Board hearing. We hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro. We conduct our meetings on the record. We're one of a small handful of DRBs in the state that do that. Effectively, what that means is that any appeal of our decision to the environmental court doesn't have a new hearing at the environmental court. The environmental court reviews the record that we've created through the testimony, hence the fancy microphones, for the members of the board, for the applicants, and for the members of the public as well. So when I call an application, what we'll do is have the applicant describe the project to us first. Board members will ask questions until we've exhausted all of our questions. Then I'll turn to the members of the public, have the members of the public ask questions, provide evidence to the board. I'll compile those questions, and then once all the members of the public have addressed the matter, I'll then make sure to direct those questions without redundancy to the applicant. It gets really messy, and our record is not very clear if the members of the public and the applicant engage in a soliloquy. So again, just address all the questions and information to the board, and I'll make sure to pass those on. The other on the record distinction is that we do conduct our hearings under oath. So if you're an applicant and you wish to participate, or if you are a member of the public and wish to be an interested person, in a couple minutes I'm going to ask everyone to stand up and take an oath. And then all of the testimony for this evening, as I said, will be under oath. We take a liberal approach to those who can participate at the Brattleboro Development Review Board. Under the statute, only those persons who are interested persons should be allowed to participate, provide evidence to the board, ask questions, and that's more narrowly defined than anyone who just happens to live in the town of Brattleboro, but we follow the anyone who just happens to live in the town of Brattleboro approach. But just because you participate at this hearing, if there is an appeal of our decision to the environmental court, you may find that the environmental court doesn't take as an expansive view regarding interested person status, and you may not be able to participate at the appeal. We have a fairly full agenda tonight, if not in number, at least complexity. So we'll probably be here a while. We'll hope to do it as efficiently as we can. We'll take the matters in order as they were listed on the agenda. And I think I have a few housekeeping things to take care of before we call the first matter. And the first is the approval of the minutes from April 18th, 2011. Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any comments? Any revisions to the
I have one
draft
minor
minutes?
revision.
Sure.
Page 4, the date that we moved the Sasama matter to was tonight's meeting, not the 15th of March. It's the 16th of May.
There we go. Any other revisions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 7-0. Let's do the confirmation. Brian, have the matters for hearing tonight been properly warned?
Yes, I have.
They have. Any disclosures of conflicts of interest or ex parte communications that the board needs to, any individual board member needs to disclose? I will be recusing myself, as I mentioned earlier, in the Ronald Minnis matter, but we'll continue on with Mr. Cuthbertson as chair for that matter. No others? Great. So all those folks who wish to either participate as applicants or members of the public and provide information and evidence to the board, if you could stand and raise your right hand and take the following oath. I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and the pains and penalties of perjury I do.
I do.
All right. I'll call application 2011-018, Sosimo Lumber Company, Inc., request for site plan, flood hazard and local Act 250. And while the applicant's settling in, especially for the newer members of the board, we did have the benefit of a Planning Services Department memo to assist us this evening. And it's often a distinction that other communities don't draw and other DRBs don't draw. And I think Brattleboro has a long and glorious history of making sure that we all recognize that the town of Brattleboro is just an interested party before us when there's an application. So when we get a memo like this, the Planning Services Department memo, which is helpful, and I'm happy that the Planning Services Department supplies that information. They're supplying that, as evidence before the board for us to use to make our deliberation and consideration of the matter before us. But we're not bound to follow the guidance and advice of the Town Services Department any more than we're bound to follow the guidance from the applicant or member of the public. It's just another body that appears before the board. And we are different than the town of Brattleboro because the town of Brattleboro is in fact an interested party that can appeal our decisions, and in fact the town of Brattleboro has in the past appeared before the DRB, and we've decided applications for land development in which the town of Brattleboro itself was a separate applicant. So I thank the Planning Services Department for the memo. I found it to be very helpful, and hopefully it will help us make an informed decision. Please tell us about your project.
Okay, Peter Bowman and Scott Corlin from Sosimo Lumber Company. Project consists of demolishing some existing dry kilns at the facility on Vernon Road and reconstructing new facilities in their place, new dry kilns. In addition, there'll be a turbine room and turbine constructed to generate power back into the CVPS loop for all of us. That's part of the so-called SPEED program that the legislature enacted last year. In fact, there will not be a new boiler constructed. The present boiler that's using the waste materials from Sosimo will continue to be used for both the turbine and the new dry kilns. We're here for site plan approval, for approval of construction in the floodplain, and for Act 250 review criteria. In regard to the floodplain issues, the existing grade out there is approximately 227.4 or 5 in that area. And the flood elevation, the 100-year flood elevation in that area is 229. What we're proposing to do is construct the turbine room and control room at elevation 230. The actual floor of the kills will be at 227.58, which is below the 100-year flood. They are storage, and under the ordinance that's allowed to be constructed that way. The buildings will be flood-proof in their construction. And so I think from the point of view of flood issues, we meet the criteria stated in the ordinance. And we've also presented information in regard to the 250 criteria.
Thank you. And in the kilns to be constructed, I guess probably the existing kilns are also then below the 230.
Yes, they
right?
are.
Yeah.
The reason we can't raise those to 230 or whatever is because we have to be able to drive the materials in with forklifts, and we can't have a steep grade. And in fact, even if we had a steep grade, we don't really have the room between the other kilns that exist there to construct a ramp into those units to get them up above 230. So that's why they're below the flood grade.
One of the many reasons I enjoy serving on the Brattleboro Development Review Board is I get to learn new things. So now I'm going to get to learn about kilns. So what's in a kiln and why is it like storage?
Well, the only thing in there is the wood being dried. Scott, you could probably tell them more about the kilns themselves, the construction and what goes on inside and so forth.
Sure. Concrete foundation with aluminum, stainless steel prefab building. And the top of it with electric motors turning fans to circulate air through the lumber with heat coils. So the lumber is in there for a period of time to be dried.
And the heat comes from the electric fan and coil on the top of the
Steam
building?
coils in the top of the
Oh, really?
structure.
There's not vented in through any sort of...
Nope, it's piped in with steam
Okay.
and radiation tubes. And the fans circulate the air through the tubes and through the lumber. And we create a...
And so it's a concrete slab,
Correct.
and any concrete wall, and or is it just...
Yep, the footings will come up,
They'll come up
they come up,
to 230
right.
in elevation, except for, of course, the front doors.
The footing will be at 230, so
Yeah.
the aluminum building will be
Sit on top of that.
set on top of that. Okay.
Correct. With the front, the large, it's a three-sided box with a large movable door on the front.
Uh-huh.
So the front sliding aluminum doors will be flood-proofed or will not be flood-proofed?
Yeah, the way they're constructed, they kind of go down on pegs. So they come down and they're pushed up against the side of the building, and that's the way they're sealed against the building. Okay, to remove the doors, they actually have, Scott probably can describe this better than I can, but they actually have things that go into the door and kind of lift it up off those pegs, and then they slide it. The door is really kind of pushed against the wall there. Is it 100% watertight? Probably not, but pretty close. Now, there's
Oh, really?
also...
So if the door is down and shut and there's 3 feet of water pressing against the door?
Yeah, in fact, if it's 100-year flood, it'd be less than 1.5 feet against the door.
Yeah.
So the door is not going to go anyplace. It's too heavy to be lifted. That's the same with the wood inside. They're high piles of wood, so they're not going to go anyplace. They weigh a lot more than the water that they're displacing wood. So nothing's going to move.
I'm sorry. Why wouldn't wood float?
Wood, if it was sitting there by itself, it would, but it's got this pile of wood on top of it,
Yeah.
which is too heavy.
And
It's
it won't
pushing
knock over and then
out.
be
Well, the
individual.
water's not going to be flowing there anyway.
There's 7-foot packs of lumber, so they're very stable, and they're about 18 feet high.
Okay.
So from the point of view of normal operation, the only circumstance where your front doors aren't there is when you don't have anything in the kiln anyway. Normally, I mean, you would load into the kiln, shut the doors, heat it, dry it,
Correct.
and then at the end of the drying process, the doors open, the wood comes out, and presumably you put more wood in.
Correct.
There's this period of time where the doors may be open and we don't have flood proofing on the front, and then in which case water would flow in, but the building would be empty.
Correct.
The building is tantamount
there's
to a
no
parking lot at that point, an open parking lot, kind of. Okay. And you say that the concrete foundation for the other three sides of the box is going to be set to 1 foot above BFE.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed it when you were first describing it. There's also a generating facility, a biomass generating facility, electric generating
That's right.
facility.
There'll be a turbine constructed at the north end of these new buildings.
Where's that shown?
Well, this. Maybe you can turn this upside down. May I make one comment about these plans? One of them is upside down. But you know that, right? It's here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This is the existing boiler room.
Yeah.
Okay. These are where the new kilns will be located and all the old ones removed in that area. So that room, that turbine room, and the control room, which is this room right behind here, will all be at 230.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about that? You show the door at 270. Is that there's steps on the inside that aren't shown on the plan?
These are, the drawings you have here are not the latest drawings, because they didn't reflect that increase in elevation we had.
Okay.
These are the original drawings that we got from the building manufacturer.
Okay, so to rephrase the question, the slab in your control room runs along the back, and in your turbine room is at 230.
That's right.
And that there will be steps either inside the building or outside the building to get you up to 230 from the grade elevation.
That's right.
Just not shown on this print.
On the print there, it isn't. I think the latest set we sent you did have a section though that showed. Or I can get you.
The latest set doesn't show. It just states a change. Well,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
they state a change in elevation, but don't show you how you achieve it.
I can send you a cross section if you'd like it for the record, showing that. I have it with me. How that works, but essentially that is the way it is. It will be, and that door will be up. That goes into the turbine room will be up at 230.
So you think it'll be external steps into the yard?
Yes.
Is the total footprint when you get done different than the footprint now, in terms of square footage?
Yeah, I think it's slightly less. Isn't that correct, Scott? Yeah. Slightly
Less?
less than it was before.
Can you just talk a little bit, partly for my interest, about the turbine generation? I mean, you have steam being produced on site
Correct.
in the boiler room, and you're going to use surplus steam to co-generate. Is that the correct term?
Correct. Currently, we use 80 pounds of steam throughout the facility. And with the new construction of these kilns and some modification internally to the heat chambers of the existing kilns, we will operate the plant at about 10 pounds of steam. And we'd like to operate about 180 pounds at the boiler and knock it down through the turbine to produce steam power. So it'll be 180 pounds out of the boiler through the turbine, 10 pounds out of the turbine, and feed the facility with that steam.
And how much electricity does this turbine will it generate approximately?
Well, it's rated for 800 kilowatts. We anticipate averaging about 600 kilowatts.
And that will be used on site typically, or is it just fed straight back into the southern loop?
It'll be fed back into the southern.
Interesting. And in terms of in the application, this says no change in personnel, no change in number of truck deliveries per day or anything like that. So the fact that there's a turbine in there producing electricity, you don't have to get extra wood chips or biomass material. It's all that which is existing right now.
Correct. It's the power is made from the process demand, so our process demand will still maintain the same. We're just going to produce that at a higher at a higher pressure.
So you're sort of using the steam on the way through.
Yeah.
Get some power for
Power
almost free.
Almost.
Clearly not.
Oh,
free,
but a lot, yeah.
And all of that process demand would have been used for steam in the past. Are you increasing or decreasing the total amount of, I guess, is it, you know, the biomass that's going to be
The biomass,
consumed?
the
Yeah.
fuel will be about the same.
And it's all produced there at the site anyways.
Yeah.
We average about 30 pounds an hour of steam at a high load
Yeah.
in the wintertime, and we should not exceed that threshold. I mean,
How many pounds is that? 30 pounds?
30,000 pounds an hour of steam.
Is this going to change the boiler, the way it works, so that there's going to be less chance of the blowbacks that have happened a few times before? Or is that still going to be a...
Well, we've changed our process there already to burn green fuel, and we'll continue to do that. We do have to retrim the boiler with heavier duty valves and such, and we plan on doing that.
So that's reduced the possibilities of the problems that you've had before?
The because of this application, the land is in the flood. I always forget. Floodway.
Floodplain.
Floodplain. Because it's in the floodplain, we need to submit and receive from the state of Vermont a acknowledgement, or at least a certain amount of time needs to pass before we get an acknowledgement from the state of Vermont regarding the approval of this application. So has that letter been sent?
It has been sent, but the state hasn't responded.
And we're still within the 30-day period?
Yes. I think there's another 12 days to go.
Okay. So what we typically do is just make our approval conditional on the receipt of either no response from the state or a receipt of a satisfactory response from the state. I also note that I haven't gotten in my application packet, and the Planning Services Department memo makes specific mention that we don't have an elevation plan showing the facades and the elevations. Does that show?
I got left, right, front. Peter, may I ask, where is the entire site in the 100-year flood zone? Or there's no, on any of these plans, there's no delineation of the line. I mean, clearly you're probably back from the floodway.
The whole project that we're talking about
Elevation.
is in the 100-year floodplain. The whole site may not be. There may be portions of the site that are not in the floodplain. But it would be probably the very north end of the site would be the only area north of this area.
At the bottom end.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the entire site plan that we're reviewing at this point in time is in the 100-year flood.
Right.
And that's why there's no line on here, because
Well, there
all
are,
of
the stuff that was submitted last does have the elevations.
Yeah,
and
don't we usually-
contour lines on it.
So we have the contour lines with
It's
the...
just, you've only got probably 2 contour lines in the whole thing because it's so flat.
Oh, really?
Okay, but you do have it. It's this, it's the information that was attached to
Smaller?
yeah, there's a
this
contour
package
there,
here.
but contours over there.
Oh, okay.
We do have it. I was just,
Okay, here.
I was looking for the 100-year flood line on there, that's all. It has the
Yeah.
contours,
Yeah,
but then if the entire area is in it, then there is...
yeah, you'll note, for example, if you look in the sheet 404, the planer mill, which is just north of this boiler room where we're talking about, is above the 100-year flood. And in fact, the portion, the north portion of the boiler room is actually above it too.
And any additional lighting?
Yes, there's lighting shown on the drawing of locations. There's shoebox type lighting. In fact, they're going to be different than what we submitted because they're going to be the more efficient LED. Yeah, not the blank there for a minute type lighting. But they'll all be shielded. In fact, you won't be able to see these buildings from the road because there's buildings between the road, existing buildings between the road and where this construction takes place. And there's no abutters except for Zaluzzi's Quarry, which is above the site, basically. So nobody's ever really even going to see these buildings or the lighting that's going to be part of it.
Which print is the lighting on?
It's on
Is it on
the original
full?
submittal. It'll show the lighting locations right on the, right there.
Okay, so there's five lights, one over the door of each kiln.
Correct.
And they're therefore at
And those are on the building?
Yes,
Some-
they're on the
freestanding?
building. No,
some 20 feet above.
Yep.
What height is that? 20, 25 feet.
Yeah, it's above the door elevations.
Do these buildings, or the turbine room in particular, have any fire hazard implications?
No, there's
No?
nothing combustible in there.
It's just steam moving through it.
Correct.
What about temperature? I mean, if the fire department has to turn up and you've got 180-degree steam flying around, is it 180, 200-degree steam? I don't know.
Well, 0 pounds of steam is 212. so-
212, okay.
Yeah.
It's steam, yeah.
Right.
Basic science, I'm sorry.
Do people walk through the kiln during, while it's drying, or it's too
No.
hot? Yeah.
And from that aspect, we're not really changing anything. It's always been steam. All
Yeah.
the kilns down there forever, basically.
I think I saw something from the fire department asking that the turbine room, presumably because of the electricity being generated, be designated as a turbine room, and that there is electricity present, or whatever the normal markings are that you would put in a electrical
room.
environment.
Yeah, everything will be
Signage.
marked and there'll be shut-offs and disconnects.
Yeah, okay.
All it says on that is that the signage at each entrance to the generator room shall indicate electrical and steam hazards. That was the memo from the fire department.
We haven't seen any of the memos.
Yeah.
from the planning office.
There's a request that, as Catherine just stated, that the Brattleboro Fire Department has requested that signage at the entrance to the generator room shall indicate electrical and steam hazards. Is that already to be done, or?
That's
or-
very easily to incorporate into this.
Okay,
Yep.
we'll
No
add that as
problems.
we'll add that as a condition.
Have you already applied for a construction permit with this state of Vermont fire safety?
It's in the process. But we haven't submitted, actually.
And you have a separate 248J
Yeah, we've got,
application?
that's exactly right. We actually got a 250 permit. We actually had the 250 permit for the building, the hills, and the turbine room. But we have to get a 248 permit, which we haven't applied for yet, for the turbine.
Interesting.
You have or you haven't?
There's some debate whether one needs to get an Act 250 permit if you get a 248J permit, but
Right,
The entire site's under 250 though, right?
that's right.
So you're changing it anyway. you're modifying the site.
That's right.
So that would
The-
that
the-
not
The
require?
kills wouldn't
The
have been...
250 folks and the 248 folks both like their jurisdiction.
Right.
Okay.
We would have had to get a 250 permit for the kills anyways, because that, the
Big-
248 does not review,
Doesn't- yeah,
so,
it's not a generating facility.
right.
And the 248 goes before the public
Public
service board,
Service Board.
and that's happened or is happening, or?
No, we haven't, it will happen, we have not applied for that yet. So this is actually a two-phase thing. The kills will be constructed hopefully this summer, and the room for the generator will be constructed this year. We expect that we will not get the permit from 248 until later in the year, and so at that point, the turbine will go into that room and be connected and so forth. So that'll be, it's kind of a two-phase project.
Great. Any members of the board have any additional questions regarding this application? Any members of the public have questions and comments regarding this application?
Actually, I wanted
Sure.
to, so there's no change in staff,
Excuse me?
there's no change in staff,
Correct.
and there's no change in traffic patterns,
No,
it's the same, there's no change in landscaping because it's concrete landscape,
correct.
That's right, there's nothing there.
and there's nothing there, and there won't be a burden on the town or under the local Act 250. There's no burden on town resources, there's no additional use of town sewer, water. It's just rebuilding, really. Better, newer, something like that.
And in fact,
Quite a bit new.
How old are the ones you're knocking down? Curious.
I think they're 60 years old.
Oh my God. I'm looking for, let me make sure I understand before I ask for
Should we
it.
do this?
Site plan, flood hazard. Site plan, flood hazard, local act 250. Those are the three?
yes, I don't, a demolition permit, but I think that's issued
I think, yeah, that's,
directly through the office.
yeah,
while
we
you're-
generally don't have separate approvals for those. So I'm looking for a motion to approve site plan, flood hazard, and local act 250 approval as drafted with the additional condition that the signage at each entrance to the generator room shall indicate electrical and steam hazards.
Can we get the
And
elevation shown in the turbine room? Not so much the elevation shown, but the door changed.
the elevation door change as referenced by
Needs to
Mr.
go up to
Cuthbert.
wherever it's got to go.
Looking for that motion.
So moved. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the application, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. I abstain, and
I also abstain.
actually, even more
You weren't appointed,
precisely,
He wasn't appointed.
was it 1, 2, 3, 4? Yes, he was. But in fact, I'm rescinding the appointment. In sidebar, I was informed that Mr. Valente had a conflict. So that is a 5-0-1. And that motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What are you telling me now? Get the appeal. Call application, oh, actually, Mr. Cuthbertson will call application 2011-029.
Call application 2011-029, Ron Minnes for creation of a new parcel. Please tell us about your project.
Well, it's the final step in what's become a 15-year process. Bought a 145-acre piece of land from Bassett Corporation back in '96. And at that point, my plan was, and I created deed restrictions on myself to create 4 building sites there. I've created 3. And this is the final subdivision that will create the 4th 51-acre parcel and put my house which I intend to sell on a 27-acre parcel, utilizing the final 78 acres of my land.
Okay, I just have a quick technical matter. James, you're appointed to hear this application. Thank you. So, we have a sketch plan here from you showing, I guess, a rough line of where
Yes,
you're intending to divide.
And I actually have the final survey here, which I plan to submit at the next planning board meeting, but I'm happy to pass a few out so you could see how they look compared to
Sure.
my rough sketch.
Sure.
And they actually correlate quite a bit. So the orientation would be this way to compare to what you have here. Here's the
Okay.
road coming in.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You like that? So this would be north.
Strange looking piece of
Okay.
land.
Yes, it's full-size set. So if you were to hold parallel to this, it would be like that, this road, this is where I do the house, and there's where the survey is located. Do you want to share that one?
Yes, that's
Yeah, we can share.
So this is showing the 27-acre lot and not the 51-acre lot? Is that
Right,
correct?
well, at some point, I'll sell both, because I can no longer afford to live there. But currently, my hope is to sell the existing house, the one I've been living in for 12 years, on the 27, I think it's .17 acres.
Mhm. So everything on this plan is existing at present? There's a pond and there's a house and
Right.
the driveways and so on and so forth?
The only thing I've done is draw in a new boundary line.
Is
It might
that
even be
road,
considered a lot line adjustment.
is the road that follows the property line there?
That's a logging road,
Okay.
so we just thought it would make a good natural border, as does the stream on the other side.
The Juniper Ridge Road is a private road or a
It
private
is.
drive, or
Private road, shared
Private
road
road.
with 12 families.
at what point does the town does it become a town-owned road? How
It
far
doesn't,
back?
it doesn't become a town-owned road until it intersects with South Street.
Okay. And the 51 acres you're subdividing off does that get
Maybe-
access from South Street, or it gets access from Juniper Ridge Road?
It gets accessed Juniper Ridge Road off South Street and then to the shared driveway, what will eventually serve 4 sites. There are 3 now, including the house that I'm selling on 27 acres.
And the other,
The other 2, I
Other 2
sold
sites?
one approximate 20-acre lot in 2001. That's towards the beginning of what becomes the private driveway. And there's another 27-acre parcel. I've tried to keep them all over 27 acres so they can all stay in current use and keep it in agricultural use. One of the deed restrictions is that there be no further subdivision for any of the parcels. So the 4 that I create on my original 145 acres will be the only 4 house sites there.
so what is the intent, what's your intended use for the 51 acre?
Well, it's too expensive to keep as a woodlot, so I'll probably build a road into it at some point, create another house site, and that would be my last house site there. That would be the fourth of 4.
So the 51 acres will remain as 51 acres, or it's being
Yes.
further subdivided?
The 51 acres can never be further subdivided.
And that's in the deed?
That is.
That will be in the deed?
It has been all along, yeah.
Just-
The deed doesn't specify the size of specific lots, but it specifies that there be only 4 lots on my 145 acres that I started with. So we have one approximate 20 acre, 2 approximate 27, and 1 approximate 51 acre lot. And I sold some peripheral land to neighbors.
So Juniper Ridge Road, as shown on this plan, is going to be on, that's actually located on the 51 acre lot?
No, no. I
Well, I'm not sure.
don't have 11 copies of these as yet.
That's okay. The property line looks like it's
Yeah.
running on the north side.
This is a map showing basically the entire parcel I started out with. Here's the 27 acre parcel. This is
Upside down.
this road coming into it.
Yep.
And this is the approximate house location.
But this road here is on the 51 acre lot?
This road, I can access the 51 acre lot from this road, where the logging road branches off of the main driveway and follows the new boundary line that we've created, where that branches off in that vicinity.
This is the new boundary.
Right.
Boundary line's here.
I would create, so right here, I would create another driveway into this 51 acre parcel.
Okay,
at
I
some
understand
point
that.
in the future.
The 27 acres seems to run on the
Well, the 51
west
is
side
around.
of that road.
Exactly.
Okay, so a right of way needs to be deeded to this property across the 51 acre lot.
No.
Juniper
No,
Ridge.
they will branch off before we enter this 27 acre parcel, because the driveway, the shared driveway here is also part of the boundary, so we will never enter this 27 acre parcel. This 27 acre parcel and this 51 acre parcel will share this length of this road.
Okay, we're agreeing. I think we're agreeing.
Oh, okay,
I'll share what.
I like that.
Okay, where's the other,
From
where are
here
the
to
other
here.
houses that are already
Right.
there?
Let me show you that on the larger map.
So right of way.
So this is this piece.
Correct.
Lot 6, there's a house here.
That's the first one on the right.
That's the first one on the right.
Well, yeah.
And as you go down, I built a road here
Yeah, but
that
what
goes
is-
to a house
if you
that's
look
under
at this,
construction now.
That's
There's boundary here on this side. and then
329
Juniper
or
Road
something
comes
like
down
that?
for
I think
little
so,
corner
yeah.
down.
Okay.
And at
In
some
here.
point,
Oh, in here, oh, this is
I
upside
might
down.
build a road, let's see,
So the
coming
51
off here
still
to a house
kind of
site here.
surrounds the
51,
27.
But there is a house out there already.
There's a
Over
house here,
here.
right now.
I mean,
That's
what's
the house
in
I'm
here?
looking at.
What's surrounding that?
Ms. Smith, our concern here is that
Yeah, but I mean, are there people there? I guess. there must be.
neither of these lots are on a public highway.
I mean, they have a road over
Neither
here.
of them have access to public
But see,
highway.
they have a road.
So we need to be sure that
Yeah.
when we permit the subdivision, that both lots have access to a right-of-way
Mhm.
permitting access to the lot.
Absolutely, it's a shared right away, yeah.
And it looks from this plan that this road here, or that short section of road there, short section of your driveway will be on the 51 acre lot. Because of this line here.
The 51 acre lot, let's see, starts at this line here, but actually the road, this section of this road, from this road to here, is actually on the 51 acre lot.
Right.
Correct.
Oh, so I see what you're saying, so I
So-
will have to deed them the right away.
Correct.
Right.
And
exactly.
the subdivision requirements are such that this needs to be a 20-foot. Brian, can you
Yeah.
correct me? It's a
That's what it
20-foot.
says here.
It's a 20-foot right of way
Mhm.
through one lot to the other, or from.
Right. Actually, this portion, I think we decided to make it a 30-foot
That's
right
fine.
away.
20 foot or greater.
Right.
all the way to the public
Okay,
road.
so we have a house here. This is the one that's under construction, and then there's another one here.
Right.
Okay, so that's the 27, this is the 20.
Actually, the other house is here. See, this is this point here, and then it continues to the house right about here.
Yeah, okay, because this isn't to scale then. 'Cause this is 27, that's 27. The size difference is,
Oh, you know why that looks different? Because this continues all the way down to here.
oh, okay.
Right, the square footage is very close. Right, it's not just this little parcel, it's this, and this strip as well. A bit gerrymandered.
Yeah, I was up there this afternoon, so that's, okay,
And the
thank you.
right-of-way for both of these lots, presumably it exists now for the total lot in 78 acres or whatever it is. But there's a right-of-way that runs back down all the way to South Street?
To Juniper Ridge and then...
To Juniper Ridge and then to South Street?
So, let's see, this would be the end of the driveway / right-of-way that will be shared with the 4 lots back here. And at this point, it meets up with Juniper Ridge Road.
Well, this says Juniper Ridge here.
Right.
That's like naming
Right,
that is, but it's not. Juniper Ridge is a public road.
no.
Oh.
All the house numbers
Mhm.
along this shared private driveway, right-of-way, have Juniper Ridge Road addresses,
Mhm.
but Juniper Ridge Road, as a matter of fact, ends right here,
Mm.
and this private driveway stops.
So for 911 address purposes, but does mail get delivered down there?
No, the mail gets delivered right here at South Street.
Mhm.
It's a nice little lot.
When you refer to 4 lots, what are the 4 lots? I see these
I can
two.
probably show you more clearly on the map that shows, oh, I can show you one on the smaller one too. There's 1, 2,
That's 2?
3, and 4.
Okay, so when all of this, none of that stuff is involved?
Exactly.
All right.
These 2 are parcels I've already sold, and some of this is...
And
It's a road right
access
here.
to these 2 lots
And that
right
goes
now
off of that road,
is
goes up
with a
into
right-of-way from Juniper Ridge Road crossing Lot 1,
Exactly.
okay? And access to Lot 2 and Lot 3 will be, to Lot 2 will be a right-of-way crossing Lot 1 and Lot 4,
Yes.
okay? And that right-of-way, which takes us back to the public road, is at least 20 foot all the way,
Right.
or 20 foot or greater.
Exactly.
Okay.
Are you folks clear?
Yeah.
The fire department raised some questions about access up into here. Can a fire truck gain access up there?
As a
Or
matter of fact, I had a chimney fire last New Year's Eve, and they had no problems coming up there.
all right. And what about this? Is none of this is on town water or
No,
sewer?
all private,
And-
septic and well.
Once again, the fire department raised a question about looking into the creation of a fire pond with a dry hydrant. So
Can you do what?
the creation of a dry pond, somewhere where they can get water from.
Fire pond with
A fire pond.
Now that it's stabilized, it's conceivable that they could use this pond here. We dug this pond in a wetland. It's the headwaters for a stream that joins Brook Brook. It's been a bit unstable, but it's, because it was newly dug, but at this point it holds a pretty steady level, and it's
That's-
conceivable
that
to use
sits
it as
here?
a fire pond.
So that sits between lots 2, 3, and I'm not quite sure how far 4.
Is there access to that pond, or is that
There's
just through a field?
a logging trail off of the driveway that goes to the house that's under construction currently.
So was that logging road wide enough to handle the fire truck that would have to go down there as a pumper?
I wouldn't think so, not currently. If that were to be made into a fire pond, some modification would have to happen.
To the road itself.
Yeah.
He was also wondering what the grade of the road is. Is it steep?
Very gentle.
It is.
Yeah, there's perhaps from the beginning of the driveway to the house on a new 27-acre lot that I'm trying to create, I would say it might go, and this is exactly a half mile from the beginning of the driveway to the house. Oh, we might see a 30 or 40 foot increase in slope.
What about the right-of-way? The Juniper Ridge right-of-way? That would be shared, the one we were just talking about here?
Oh, that was the one I was just talking
Oh,
about.
okay, I thought you meant
yeah.
driveway going up there.
No, I meant this
Okay.
shared right-of-way for the 4 lots.
Okay.
Goes up about maybe 30, 40 feet over a half mile.
Tim,
Any other questions? Sorry, yeah,
did
go
you
ahead.
see this one from the?
Oh. One of your neighbours has presented some questions to us. The first question is, does your property extend into Guildford?
Pardon me?
Does your property extend into Guildford?
Um,
Does it stop at the Guildford line, or
part of the 51-acre parcel
is in Guildford?
is in Guilford. The 27-acre parcel has no land in Guilford.
Okay. And then the second question was, what are your plans for accessing the remaining 51.8 acres? And I believe that we've fairly much covered that.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a possibility of access from the Guildford direction, or no?
No. No, it's landlocked from that direction.
Okay. And the plan for developing the remaining 51 acres is a single-family dwelling, was it? I think you said.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any further questions from the board?
There's this final comment from the planning department. They're asking that the applicant secure documentation from the fire chief that he's satisfied with the subdivision prior to signing the final plat. Do we do that typically for subdivision approval, or?
No, I think this was a particular concern because of water supply.
Okay. So we would just make that a condition of our findings if we wanted it?
But if the part of 51 acres is in Guilford, how do we deal with that? Being Brattleboro,
We don't.
we don't.
We deal with the bit that's in Brattleboro.
So
The
that's
bit that's over the border in Guildford is subject to
Guilford.
Guildford's planning
Okay.
or regulations, but it would seem from what Mr. Minnis has told us is that the 51.8 acres is, the majority of the 51.8 acres is in the town of Brattleboro.
It is.
And the covenants or the deeds state that it's a 51.8, sorry, it's a single-family dwelling, it's restricted to a single-family dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
And the right-of-way to that parcel will be from South Street through Juniper Ridge Road. Okay.
The 51.8 acres, is that total the land in Brattleboro and in Guilford, or is that
Yes,
just the land
that's
in Brattleboro?
the total land both in Guilford and Brattleboro. Guessing, maybe this shows, but I would guess that of the 51 acres, 11 or 12 are in Guilford, and the rest are in Brattleboro.
You would record the deed in both towns? then?
Yes, on that parcel I would have to, yes.
Is that boundary shown on that plan? The Guildford line?
Yeah, this one shows the remainder of my entire land and the other abutting parcels. It might help orient you a little bit better. So, this house is about here. This point is right here.
where this little short straight line is,
Yep.
is where this is. Then it continues here, and just prior to where this Woods Road branches off is where the other road, about here, this would almost feel like going straight to another house site, which is about here.
And the Guildford line is?
This is the Guildford line right here.
So this this section here,
So from here to here, let's call this 1,200 feet. So actually there's about 7 acres of this 51-acre parcel that's in Guildford.
where does this lot line end up here? Stops there and
It's a
goes left
straight
and right?
line. It follows the stream, and it goes straight down here, follows the stone wall, and comes down here. So of this 27-acre parcel, this portion is in Guildford. This whole strip, this is the town line right here.
Is that annotated as the town line? So
Pardon?
it's wire fence, okay.
Yeah, this is the town line, and
Here.
approximately a 200-foot wide by 3,400 feet is in Guildford. And 1137 of it belongs to this 51-acre parcel.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any further questions? Anyone in the public wish to speak to this application? So if you come up to the microphone and give us your name.
Sure. My name is Tom Dubler,
Yep.
and we live, and I think you referred to it as the first house on the right, off Juniper Ridge Road and into the shared driveway. We bought our property, which I think earlier Mr. Minnis might have said that most of the lots were 27 acres. Ours is a little over 18 acres from Mr. Minnis in 2001. At that time, Mr. Minnis reserved a 20-foot right-of-way for his residence and 2 additional residences. One of my concerns is when he sold the other lot that was referred to this evening as the lot that's under construction. Originally, when he sold that lot, he conveyed to the buyers a 50-foot right-of-way over our property. We have since corrected that title defect, and we've put him on notice that we would hope that he would not do that again. But I wish to make certain, and the board knows, that it is over our property only a 20-foot right-of-way to service his existing residence and the 2 additional residences. Now, the second issue that I have is one of safety. It's only a 20-foot right-of-way over our property. And Mr. Minnis continues to drive at what the neighbors and Jane and I consider to be an excessive rate of speed. So it's a question of safety. We've asked him to slow down, and his guests we have asked to slow down, and they have refused. If you were up there this afternoon, you saw there are a number of almost blind turns when the foliage comes out. And I would estimate his speed to be typical 30 miles an hour plus. And I think that's excessive. So I don't know if there's any way this board can restrict the speed on the right-of-way over our property other than through agreement by the property owners. And again, Mr. Minnis has been not able to agree to restricting that. Next, the new lot is restricted by deed to residential single-family, which you discussed. Even though, and again, I'm not an attorney, so I believe that zoning laws may permit businesses to operate under residential property. It was our intention when we agreed to the original deed restrictions that residences or businesses that created additional traffic would not be permitted on these lots. Mr. Minnis has been operating a business, massage studio, and maybe perhaps other businesses out of his residence, and we would like to be able to restrict the use of those properties to single-family residences and limit the amount of traffic that's on that road. Again, primarily for safety reasons. We certainly don't want to see anyone injured. Now, obviously, I haven't seen the plan that he distributed to you tonight, since you just saw it tonight. the most recent plan with the right-of-way across our property that I had was drawn by Stevens Engineering, dated February 21st, 1995. That showed the existing wood road, which was on the property, and a proposed road, which was to the north and west of that existing road, closer to our lot line with the French property. That road, according to my inexperienced calculations, is not in the area where it was to be, the proposed road. It was never moved. It's created some problems with a curtain drain from a septic system on an adjacent lot that's in our field. And that curtain drain on that Stevens plan is to the south of our shared road. Where the curtain drain has been installed is on the north side of the road, running under the road and creating some difficulties with maintaining the road.
Can I just hold you for 1 second?
Yeah.
The location of the road, I think what you just said, or maybe I misunderstood it, the location of the road as it crosses your property does not sit in the right-of-way as in the documents, or it's incorrectly positioned.
Again, I'm not sure that the documents I have are the most recent ones that have been approved by this board or any other board. The plans that I have show that the road, the existing wood road, and I have a copy of that plan here, was to be relocated, and it's called proposed road. And it's not where that proposed road is on that plan.
Let me just rephrase the question. The road, there's a 20-foot right-of-way that's deeded across your property.
It's right. He reserved a 20-foot right-of-way from the deed to us
Yes.
for his residence and
Yes.
2 additional residences.
Yes.
Correct.
But the physical location of the logging trail or the road as it exists right now does not sit within the right-of-way as you understand it.
It might sit, according to this plan, it wouldn't. Correct. If this is the most current plan, which I don't know.
Was that plan recorded with the deeds? And is there
This-
reference to
This
the deeds?
wasn't. This is the copy of the plan that I was given when we purchased the property.
Is there a plan referenced in the deed that, so I would think that would be the one that would control.
My guess is that there is. I don't have the full deed with me now. I think that is it. Oh, the other, you asked a question about whether someone could gain entrance to the new 51-acre parcel, or for that matter, either one of the 27-acre parcels from Guilford or from some abutting property. And when we originally purchased the property and allowed Mr. Minnis to restrict his development to those 3 additional residences, that was one of our concerns, and that's why it is only 3 residences, because if it could be developed on another parcel and they would gain entrance through our property, we wouldn't have any control over that. And again, we own the land, and he has the right-of-way to come through it. There's no dispute there, other than the excessive speed. But we don't want other people gaining access and coming through from the backside. Obviously, it's Miller Road is close. If someone from Miller Road could get to Brattleboro, a lot easier coming through Juniper Ridge than they could all the way down Miller Road in Bonnievale. It's not that far away. So we wanted to make sure that we were protected from the additional traffic and wear and tear on our right-of-way.
Just to take your last point there, you're saying that there's a possibility that Juniper Road could extend through to Miller Road?
No, but for example, if the adjacent parcel in Guilford, for example, okay, or an adjacent parcel off of Miller Road is only a couple hundred feet from the driveway from the house that's under construction now. So if the people who own that property now or in the future allow that adjacent landowner from Miller Road to cut through, they'd have to come across our property. It's the only way to get out. And that's our concern, to make sure that that's restricted.
Unless I'm mistaken, the deed that you have should define the right-of-way to being to these 4 properties and to no other properties outside of that.
That's right.
I don't think it's a public highway.
It's not a public highway, but neither is their driveway. For example, the house that's under construction now is directly adjacent to a building lot that could be developed. Access to that lot is right now from Miller Road. All right, so if they gave the people of that lot, when they developed it, to come through their lot, their Juniper Ridge lot, you refer to it as Lot 2, and down their driveway, the only way they can get out is across our property.
But you wouldn't have to let them do that because your deed says they can't,
Yeah,
right?
it's tough to stop them, but you're right, we wouldn't have to let them, Dr. Chart.
Well, and at this point in time too, we're not considering the subdivision of Lot 2. I'm calling it Lot 2, the 27-acre lot.
Yeah.
We're looking at the split of the
That's correct.
78-acre lot.
Correct.
into two
It
pieces.
doesn't matter whether it's the split of the 51 and the 27, just by example.
Okay.
Again, if someone were to develop a backland in Guilford adjacent to the 51-acre lot, they could gain access through the backside.
That
to-
land in
to our-
Guilford, I think, is part of the 51 acre.
The land
Yes.
beyond
Oh,
this 51
okay, okay.
acres, right? He can't subdivide his anymore, but the land beyond that could easily gain access to the backside of our property and then Juniper Ridge.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Menace, do you have any comment as to your neighbour Tom's suggestion about the road crossing his property, the right-of-way crossing his property not being aligned with the physical crossing? Is that
When I sold Mr. Dubler his land, I also included as part of the deed a survey. All the points along the boundary and the right-of-way are mentioned in the deed and in the survey, and they're in there exactly the way that were shown on the survey that was done by Bill Fitzgerald in 2001. And Mr. Dubler has at least one copy of that.
Does the physical... The
It
road is
shows-
constructed, whether the road was there before or not, I don't know. Does the physical road sit within the right-of-way?
The physical road fits within the right-of-way on the subdivision plan, on the survey, which is incorporated into Mr. Dubler's deed. And the right-of-way on that deed, on that survey, is exactly where it's supposed to be, exactly where it says it is. There's been no deviation. As to the approximate location of a woods road that Mr. Dubler referred to that was on an outdated plan of 1995, there was indeed a woods road there. But by the time Mr. Dubler bought his land from me, there was an existing driveway there. There have been no changes since Mr. Dubler bought that land from me. That road was there, that road was surveyed and located, and that road was specified in his deed.
Okay. There were two other points that he raised. One of them was to do with speed on the road. It's not this board's prerogative to define speeds on private driveways.
Well,
but might I suggest that if speed is an issue that, as a matter of good neighbourliness, that
I
you
think
come to
the
an arrangement
issue
about that?
is Mr. Dubler's obsession with control, and his interpretation of speed on the driveway is incredibly subjective. And we could disagree over 5 or 7 miles an hour. We probably will, and, for as long as we know each other. Whenever I drive past the Dubler residence, I always check my speedometer, and I'm always at 25 miles per hour or less, depending upon conditions.
And then the final point that you raised, Mr. Dibler, was that this board, this is the rural residential district, correct?
Yes.
Right, Brian? This is these properties, or this land is in the rural residential district, and we can't, with single-family residences, and the occupants of single-family residences are permitted to do certain things within their residences with regard to work and work practices and that type of thing. It's not for this board and subdivision hearing to attempt to try and restrict beyond that which is governed by the underlying zoning what could or couldn't happen in those properties. That's defined in the zoning code. So somebody who is perfectly capable of having a home business or a type of business within that property that conforms to the rural residential codes. Does anybody else on the board have any further comments?
I mean, just the only thing is, so you have a private well out there?
Yes.
And is there, so the fire chief's concerned about water supply in the event of a fire. Have you, received a wastewater permit for, how new is this house that was built out here? Do you know,
Is it
like,
what that was built?
the house that's built,
Mhm.
do you know, like, what your water flow is and?
Oh, yeah, yeah. The well is drilled at 475 foot deep, produces 7.5 gallons a minute.
I mean, I don't know what that means in terms of fighting fires.
It's average residential and about twice as deep as normal. So what that means, there's a lot of static storage. Also, directly behind the residence on a 27.17 acre parcel, there's a pond in ledge that's, I can't tell you how many gallons of water, but the pond is about 80 feet long and 30 feet wide. It doesn't show on the map. It's right in the backyard of the residence on a 27. It's a frog pond. It's about 4 feet deep. It varies. Some places are less than a foot, about 80 feet long, irregular shape, 30 feet at the widest. A fairly significant amount of water.
Would you be opposed to the condition that we ask you to get documentation from the fire chief, and in terms of his satisfaction with the property's ability to supply enough water and that there's enough room for the emergency vehicles to get back there?
There's certainly enough room. I'd be interested in how that would be worded. I'm not opposed to it, no, but I certainly want to review the wording of what we're talking about.
The pond that you have on the 27 acre lot, the lot that you currently have.
The larger of the two ponds?
No, I don't know whether it's the larger of the two ponds. There's a pond shown on this plan here.
That's the larger of the two, yeah.
That, Stephen asked you, Mr. Page, if you had access to that. He said there's a road out there. I mean, would it be possible for a fire vehicle or a pumper truck to access that pond?
It would be possible for a pumper truck to park in the parking area of the residence on a 27.17 acre parcel and pull a hose down to that pond, down the trail which exists to that pond from the house. The truck needn't necessarily be parked at the pond to pump. The truck can be parked in the dooryard of the house with a hose. It's about 400 foot to the pond from the house.
Have you talked to the fire department at all about this?
I haven't, no. And I totally think that's a valid suggestion.
I think we could add a condition that you should discuss with the fire department the feasibility of utilising that existing pond as a source of water in the event of a fire.
And I would talk with Captain Bacazzi?
Yep, yes, please.
They also have on that a T-turn or a cul-de-sac for the rigs to turn around.
There's where the driveway turns to go into the 27.17 acre parcel. There's a very large log landing along the driveway there, very large enough for logging trucks to go in and turn around. Also, at the house site itself, there's a very large parking area and also log landing, again, large enough for logging trucks to pull in and turn around. And once a month I host a singing group, and there's enough room there for 20, 25 cars to park there.
I'm going to propose that we condition this on you discussing with the fire department, the fire chief,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
the suitability of turning around where you've suggested it's turned around, which is the junction of the two lots,
Right.
and that you discuss with them the
Access to
suitability of our accessibility to the fire pond and what the requirements would be.
Mhm.
Okay. looking for a motion to approve subdivision. Is it, where are we? Request for
211.
211029. This is preliminary approval? Subdivision approval?
I think it's,
It's not final plat. Sorry?
It was warned as final.
Was it warned as final?
because it's just minor. Or is that?
It's a minor, but was it? It was definitely warned as final?
Yes.
I would like to see this plan fully revised. The plan, if you
Well, they
could,
suggested it before you signed the final plat, that
okay.
it
So,
could be revised according to the fire
What kind of
chief's.
revision was that?
Well, the plan that you showed us, that's floating around here somewhere, this is just showing the 27-acre lot.
Right.
I'd like to see the 27-acre lot, the 51-acre lot,
You'd like to see the entire parcel?
the entire parcel, and we'd also like to see, if this isn't Juniper Ridge Road here, that corrected on the plan, and then the
That's the language that they said.
correct documentation with regard to the right-of-way. Okay.
Tim? Pass that on.
And you'll include that, all that, in your note to me?
Yes, in our decision, so...
Tim, those were the notes from the fire chief on that paper I just gave you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to approve final plan approval for application 2011-029 with the following additional conditions that the final plat, a copy of the final plat be provided to us with the full, the two lots, the full 51-acre and the 27-acre lot, that corrections are made to those plans as we just discussed, and that the 20-foot right-of-way be correctly determined.
So moved.
No, what about the,
Oh, I beg your pardon. And then, and that,
Oh, the
The
fire,
fire chief
the
has
fire,
the,
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 yeah,
I'm going to get this wording here, thank you.
the recommendation.
Documentation from the fire chief that he is satisfied with the proposed pond and turnaround access
Right.
as determined by his memo, his earlier memo, or as notated by his earlier memo.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favour?
I,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You'll get a note. You can have this back. You'll get a note from
Did you
Brian.
need to get something back?
Yes,
Oh, the larger one. Yes.
do you want, did you get a copy of this so you can see what it's suggesting?
Yeah.
no, sorry.
Thank you.
I'll call application 2011-035 John Brunel for Joanne Holbrook. Request for minor plat approval. Hello.
Hi.
Please tell us
I'm
about your
John
project. Please tell us about your project.
Okay, it's just a basic subdivision lot in Brattleboro to build a house. Joanne owns a pretty good sized corner lot right now on corner of Fairview and Winter Street, and she's got enough land that we can subdivide a lot off it and put a little house for her beside it. So that's basically it. You all should have a pretty good survey map from Bill Fitzgerald. Meets all the minimum requirements. I have had the town Public Works over to check out the driveway, curb cut,
Yeah.
and they were all for it, and said no problem. I know I hooked water and sewer up there because I just developed a lot right next door, and I tied in the water and I tied in the sewer, so it was pretty easy. Sewer runs right in front of the lot, and the water is right beside the lot, so they're both maybe 30 feet to the public tie-ins. So,
And the lot size is conforming in the district, 0.16
yeah,
acres?
it minimum 6,000. This one's going to be like just under 7,000.
Okay. And where's the curb cut for lot 1, the lot, I guess, to the west? Right off
The
of
existing
Winter
one now?
Street? Yeah. right off
Let's
of
see,
Winter.
where are we here? Yeah, for lot 1, it's way over to the right. It's actually right, it actually shows, kind of like, it shows the town curb there
Yeah, where
in the
where it
drawing.
crosses the
and
property line?
where it bends,
Yeah.
it's right there. That's the right-hand side of it.
All right. So you don't think a shared curb cut would be appropriate there?
No, it wouldn't actually work because of the terrain of the land and
Okay.
stuff like that.
And your initial conversation with Public Works is that they don't mind a curb cut that close to the intersection of Winter and Fairview?
No, they've actually been right over, and we had it staked right out, and
Yeah.
I actually marked it on there, I think. On your copy, I drew a little
Yeah, I see
thing.
that.
That's
yeah.
exactly where we staked it out and put stuff there, and
Is there on-street parking here on Winter Street or Fairview?
Doesn't look like it.
on Fairview, no.
No.
No, you wouldn't park out there. Winter Street, when the people have guests that live up and down the road,
Yeah.
they always park there, but I don't think like in the wintertime overnight you can when there's plowing.
Right. Yeah, not in the winter. You
type of thing.
intend that there would be a driveway or a
Yep.
little parking area?
Yeah, I'm going to put a driveway that comes in that's 18 feet is the maximum width you can do.
Yeah.
But once I come in, I'm going to curve it over and make it 2 cars wide. Plus, the house will have a garage. I actually got a permit already to put an addition onto her house with a separate driveway. And I was going to have to get approval for the driveway, but then when I got the idea to split the lot, because it's not feasible economically to put an addition that's going to cost $125,000 onto a house, I'll never get my money back. I'm trying to get Joanne a smaller house that's easier to heat, that's not upstairs and that kind of stuff. So basically my wife and I are going to buy her house and then build this little house for her next to it. She's going to live there.
And the house to be built probably won't come back before us, but it'll be built in that that setback that you've indicated?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there'll be no, it'll conform to all the setbacks. I won't need a variance or anything like that.
And so the front yard will be considered the yard facing Winter Street?
Yes, exactly.
What's in that lot now? Is it just lawn? Or
Yeah.
is it wooded?
Yep,
or...
it's just lawn, yep,
Okay.
yep.
A few down pine trees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had Chucky Mayotte, I had him give me a quote on it. He wanted to do it the next day, and so I think he could have used the work, so I just had him go ahead and do it. Because I had a permit to put an addition on anyways, so I knew I was going to do one or the other, but...
I don't think you need a permit in the town of Brattleboro to cut trees.
No, but I wouldn't have spent the money or started it unless I knew I could do one or the other. And I actually got a permit to put the addition on, but then I went back right after I got it and said, you know what, I think it'd be smarter to build a separate house. Then I'll have something worth something when I'm done.
It must have some nice kind of winter views to the east towards Wintastica.
She probably does. You know, I don't think I've ever looked out that way, but I bet it does.
Any other members of the board have questions regarding this application? Any members of the public have questions regarding this application? Hearing none. Looking for a motion to approve application 2011-35 as drafted.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. I abstain. That carries 601. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Application 2011-37 and 2011-39. We'll do them both at the same time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't
Worrying about that.
I think one of them came in late.
Oh,
So it wasn't sworn in.
thank you very much. Yes, no sworn in.
Yeah.
Oh,
No doubt.
I'm going to participate. If he participates. I'll participate. It's sworn in. It's like a I don't know if it works that way. Sure, we'll take a 5-minute recess, sorry. And we'll be back in 5. Thank you. I'll call the May 16, 2011 Brattleboro Development Review Board meeting back to order. And we are continue with application 2011-37 and 2011-39. Please, tell us about your project.
For those of you who may have forgotten, I'm Adam Hubbard from Stephen Associates and Jonathan Chase. And we are here before you again, reviewing Mr. Chase's concept for a planned residential development this time. As you know, we were before you before for the planned unit development, and we have decided to pull back from that, hearing voices of concern about commercial development, having some stumbling blocks on the development agreement with the town, and mostly choosing a smarter path of development for us at this time. Our strategy at this point is to come for subdivision classification and preliminary plat review, as well as concept review and preliminary plan review. And the idea now is to create one 17-unit parcel on which to develop the residential piece that we had described, and I will describe again here in a minute. I'll show you the plan. It's a little awkward. It's north is towards the road, but so here is north towards Route 9. And so we have Route 9 and Brookside Drive and the Brookside condominiums here. And currently the land under consideration is in 2 lots. It is in Mr. Chase's 8-acre plus or minus lot that surrounds his house, the Runyon property, and abuts Brookside Drive. And then there was this 40-something acre lot that went down to the south or up the hill. And for subdivision purposes, what we'd like to do is move this property line to the south to create one 17-acre lot. And the 17-acre lot would exclude the Clark property that has previously been subdivided and is on record as being his own lot. And then within this 17-acre lot, we would establish that planned residential development. And just by way of description, there's a piece of undeveloped land along Route 9, some land along the brook, and then the land slopes up behind Brookside condominiums here. Leave that for your reference. So here we are. Here's Route 9 and Brookside Terrace, and this becomes the lot. It's a funny shape, but if these 2 remnants were from the previous subdivision that allowed access by right-of-way to this upper parcel, and then there'll be access to the right-of-way, access to the parcel through right-of-way across what is now the Runyon property, and we'll probably need some right-of-way across Mr. Chase's current residence. So what you see is that 17-acre parcel, again, kind of polygonal, but there it is. And again, this is the plateau that sits up behind Brookside Terrace. And essentially, the way we've outlined the property is to provide the ability to conform to the planned residential standard of having 50% of the land remain in conservation. And that would allow us to conserve this land down by the brook, which has flood issues and wetlands, and also allow for the creation of that right-of-way that we had talked about before, that would connect Memorial Park to at least Whetstone Brook, and then hopefully down the road out towards West Brook on that south side of the brook. Still, we would have one main access up the bank and up to the plateau. We have a secondary emergency access that would be gated somewhere beyond the Clark house. And then we're also committed to providing a secondary emergency access that would overlap with that potential for the Whetstone Trail here. And this comes out right about the skating rink, so that we know that's doable. As we've said before, this is a nice opportunity to provide high-density, compact housing close to many municipal and commercial services. We have the farmers market, the Memorial Park, Academy Schools up the road, the West Brattleboro Village is right up the road, and then there's a convenience store and Country Deli there. Access to public transportation is still available. This project would get developed with the use of municipal sewer and water. It would conform to the requirement for 50-foot setbacks from all the property lines. It's in terms of conforming to the development standards, we reference the town standards in grading, drainage, signs, and lighting, and then we're still proposing the use of the form-based code to create that framework by which we could develop this neighborhood. And what we like about that is that we would end up with a development that is not uniform. The whole idea of this proposal and the idea of form-based code is to provide a sort of a diverse range of housing and types of housing and costs of housing. What you see here is some single-family homes, some apartment buildings, flats, and potentially some townhouses. And while what you see here is would conform to the form-based code, this is not necessarily how it would get developed. This is more a concept of how you would see it get developed. But this does, this would stand the test of the form-based code. And I could, if you're interested, I could sort of give you some of the standards laid out in the form code.
How about we start with the density? And what I'm going to try to do is focus on what things have changed since you were last here and what things are the same. So we don't need to spend time discussing things that we've laboriously debated previously. This was a thoroughly vetted application the last time you were here. We, I think, went through 3 or 4 or 5 meetings and a rather heavily conditioned and deferred approval by the board. I suspect that we'll also be looking at a pretty heavily conditioned approval again, because there's lots of things that we don't yet know that we would need to know in order to do a final plat. But we're not at a final plat, we're just at preliminary plat tonight. So let's begin with density. Sure.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Do you mind, sir?
Go.
Can we talk about the subdivision?
Sure.
Before we go to density? Can you just define the line on this plan is the new 17-acre lot? So the Clark house that was in the previous plan and the Chase residence that was in the previous plan are now out of this subdivision.
That's correct. And the Runyon parcel was also in the previous and that would also stand true for the West Mac.
Sorry, okay. So finding it hard to determine exactly what's what from these, this colour plan with the dotted line on it is the new parcel.
That's right.
The polygonal parcel.
It is the same as this.
It is the same, but it's just
and this goes away.
So, and then the rights of way to that parcel, this new parcel, are across the bridge, and then
well, it's public road across the bridge, and then there's a 50-foot right-of-way across the Runyon parcel. Likely there'll be a 50-foot right-of-way across the Chase parcel. There's a at least a 50-foot right-of-way up the hill, though we think that might be a little too steep. And there's a 50-foot right-of-way coming up past the Clark House.
Could you do the first two rights of way again for me? What's the Runyon parcel?
The Runyon is an island parcel with an existing right-of-way across that northern portion of the parcel.
So there will be, it's on the border between the Chase property and there'll be the curly road, the sort of serpentine thing?
The border, the boundary sort of crosses the road we have, present road that we have. And the idea is that providing more right-of-way across Jonathan's home parcel would ensure that we have the ability to get a road through there.
Okay, and then the other one is through the current Brookside development to the far side, over there.
Yeah.
And then the third one you mentioned.
Well, if you came straight across Brookside Terrace or Brookside Drive, and up there, there's right of way there as well.
But you're not showing. Maybe you're right of way there, but you're not showing a road there on this plan.
That's right. That's right.
It just happens to be a right of way. Should you choose to use it?
Yeah. And we are proposing a 20-foot right of way from Memorial Park across the Clark parcel.
Who owns that one?
Jonathan owns that.
Oh, okay.
When you said it was going to be kind of steep for that other right of way, what were you talking about as far as height, steepness of it?
It's probably, you could probably get a driveway. You could probably get 12% up there. I don't know that for sure, but in terms of a real access road to service this amount of people coming straight off of, is this the right way you're talking about? Yeah, it's impractical to come straight for that level of service.
Thank you.
Is that backlot now landlocked? There's no...
It would be landlocked with access by right-of-way, using the road network. And there's actually, on the plan you have, that we show those right-of-ways continuing out to that parcel.
Thank you.
So the density shown here, if I remember the last application, you gave us a representative sample of what the form-based build-up might look like, and it was less dense than what would have been permitted under the form-based code. What's the density shown roughly? What's the density maximum under your proposal, and what's the density in the underlying district now?
Well, if you took, as I said, the 17 acres, half of that is slated to be dedicated to conservation land or open space. So half of that, 8.5 acres, at 12 units per acre would yield 102 houses, 102 units.
Okay.
So, and that's the density that we outlined in the form.
The 12 units per acre.
The 12 units per acre.
And what's shown? What do you think that is right there?
What's shown there is about 98 units.
All right, so
based on some assumptions, so you'd say 90 to 100.
okay. So it wouldn't be significantly more dense than shown.
You'd have a hard time getting more dense than shown.
Okay. And what's the density in the underlying district?
So I think the
some of it's
resident. We're in two zones.
Yeah.
Right? So if you took this land north of this 8-acre parcel.
Is that also the zoning line?
I think it does represent the zoning line. Brian may be able to figure it out. But either way, if you took 6,000 or 6,000 for the first unit and 2,000 for the next, for each additional unit, you end up with 400 units on this 8 acres.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a moot point.
All right, so it's less dense than arguably what's at least permitted by the calculation of the zoning.
And what we're really trying to achieve here is to get the flexibility to do the compact piece of it. If portions of this are in the rural residential, we have to conform to 25-foot setbacks. which means that you would end up with, lots that are at least 75 feet wide on the frontage. And you wouldn't be able to build this with, 80-foot wide lots for single-family homes.
So, did you make any significant changes, any changes at all, for that matter, to the form-based code that would control that residential district?
No.
So that's the same that we
Same.
reviewed
Yeah.
previously and
That's
approved?
right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I did mean to point out that we are asking for that same deferral on a lot of the subdivision requirements with that concept that we would be back before any development, that any future development is contingent upon future site plan approvals.
Just remind me, or perhaps Craig can remind me, how do we, part of the purpose of the form-based code type of development was so that we didn't end up with a uniform cookie-cutter type approach to subdivision there. How were we ensuring that the development actually happened that way? What was the method that we were proposing that before, or did we not do that? You produce a document, and then we say, well, what's to stop somebody coming in and saying, I don't like that document?
No, we incorporated
that in?
Yeah, it's a condition of the PRD. It was a condition of the PUD
Okay, thank you.
that
That was
the
the question.
development be
So we found
in
that
conformance
document in.
with the form-based code.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be, exactly.
So there was some low-density residential, that's just off the table now.
That's off the table, that's another lot.
And then way up to the, what is that, to this, I guess
To
to
the
the
south.
south, there was maybe some forest land, open,
Yeah, this lot would
Wooded
become a
land.
26-acre lot, and development of that land would be possible for single-family homes, but it would be constrained by access and utility.
So if we were to approve the subdivision of this lot, how is access gained to the top lot?
Through the rights-of-way across.
So there'll be a right-of-way across
Yeah.
the 17-acre lot into the remaining portion of the parcel.
That's right. Utilizing the road system. It would be a continuation of this road, for instance. I think is really the only way you can get a driveway.
and it would probably be the road to the west, since the road to the east is limited to emergency access?
This would
Yeah,
be-
with that's limited to
right.
emergency, okay.
This would be gated for emergency access, and actually the property gets very steep at the end of this.
Mhm.
So again, we've studied this a little bit, and coming across, traversing the slope here would be the only way to get a driveway.
So are we doing site plan approval?
No.
We're not doing site plan approval?
No, that was an issue that we discussed ad nauseum last time. This is not site plan approval. We're not approving the location of those buildings,
Right.
their orientation, the location of the streets, the size of the streets, anything like that.
Okay. Thank you.
It's concept plan and preliminary plat with final plat to follow, and site plan to follow as well. And no, as you mentioned, no commercial development then, and no changing of the underlying zoning for the commercial, what are now zoned as residential lots, but what you had in the past proposed for commercial uses right on Route 9.
That's right.
Yeah. And so in this district, residential uses are already permitted. And that gets us out of the PUD scheme and into the PRD scheme. Okay. And
There's
PR,
another piece that cleans this up is just having the multiple owners. We had multiple landowners in the previous PUD
true, yeah.
application, and that we found became very cumbersome after a while.
Who's gonna own the underlying, who's gonna own all this property? Are you gonna sell the individual houses? Is it gonna be rental units?
Well, I think that's what drove our logic originally, is that we didn't have the answer to that, so we would like to, we could envision a team of investors and developers coming together to either develop this in sections or as a whole project, but we would need to clear this hurdle in order to be able to do that. So the answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
part of the zoning ordinance, I guess, for the open space, you know, there's certain, I guess it could either be conveyed to the town, a trust, or as part of deeds of individual, so that's something else you would figure out, homeowners association.
It would be a homeowners association.
Okay.
And that homeowners association would start with Jonathan. And those covenants would go to the homeowners association or him to start with. And then as you got more parties involved, then that homeowners association would be formed and with multiple parties.
So, correct me if I... So we're looking at this really as a residential development, PRD to get the density up, and this form-based code is a development document. Development
Almost a
guidelines.
development standard,
It's
right?
not zoning guidelines, it's a development, we're talking about this is the development guidelines.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think it doesn't get the density up.
No, the density is
Because the
as
density,
given.
Yeah, density would be higher than the underlying.
You know, one of the
Potentially, yeah.
one of the
Theoretically.
one of the nice things about form code, and you know, as a personal side, I hope to see it become more pervasive. But one of the nice things about it is that it sort of gives a developer a path to developing it in a positive, like a proactive way. Instead of saying you can't do this, we're going to restrict you to this area of your lot. What it's saying is that these are the standards in terms of ratios, setbacks, heights that sort of give you the form of a traditional neighborhood.
And just to be clear, so people who are listening and watching, we're not abdicating our role in site plan review. You would come back before us and explain to us how, in fact, your proposal met the form base that we had adopted.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Do you see,
And let me just throw in another, by way of example, like in traditional zoning, the setback, or front yard setback is 25 feet or something like that. In form-based code, the maximum is 20 feet in this zone, or in this lot. So you have to be within the, up at the street. And the amount of frontage is, you have to fill 40% of the frontage along the street. So you don't end up with these lots of driveway out to a house at the back of the lot. You end up with a streetscape. You end up with a presence on a street.
in terms of site plan approval, do you see this going in phases? So you would come back and say, here's site plan phase 1, and we're going to do this element of it. We're going to get the road in here, and we're going to do the first acre, and then come back for the second acre, and then come back for the third acre as it changes, or do you see it more big picture?
It wouldn't be a small first phase, because the amount of investment to get a road and utilities up here would require some 30 to 40 units. So the first time we come back with site plan approval, it's not going to be for a house. It's going to be for development.
Let's talk about some of the issues that are...
Is that...
Well, if I could just clarify, I think it's subdivision,
Oh.
actually.
We were wondering if you were going to speak.
Yeah.
And because you're speaking now, I have to swear you in.
I do.
If I can remember what it is that I ask people. You hereby affirm that the testimony you are about to give and the cause under consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
There we go.
Under the penalties.
And could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Bob Stevens. I work with Adam sometimes.
And you're here as a citizen, interested citizen, and not on the payroll?
We call that a shill.
No, I wanted
Would you like to take the microphone too?
Sure.
Thank you.
Just to clarify the discussion about the next step, it's this, I think the subdivision process, which would be next, which would design all of the roads, the boundary lines for the individual lots, and that would come through as one package before you see lot by lot. I mean, they could come at the same time, but it's really the subdivision process that we're deferring that would have to happen next before anything could be conveyed. And then site plan approval would trigger if you have a lot that requires site plan approval. They will all require subdivision to to establish the lots, to get the road infrastructure, the utilities in. And site plans, some may not require site plan approval, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Brian? Yeah. Right, single families would not, everything else would.
But it's possible that, I don't know your development plans, but it's possible that this wouldn't be subdivided, that there would be some sort of a unit owners association of condominium units without subdivision in that sense. Or do you think that you subdivide
That's
them?
true, but
Yeah.
I think it's very like it is very much like a condominium association, except that at this stage, because we're not defining the common-owned lands, like the rights-of-way for the roadways accurately, we would have to come back to establish those, which would be boundary lines. Even the condominiums, if you do it in that manner, typically the buildings become the boundary lines, and so those have to be established as well. So there is a step in there for establishment of the roads and the utilities that would be the subdivision process, which we have not asked for approval, and we need to come back before this body.
Okay. Did you have a question, comment, Brian? There were a couple of sticky wickets the last time you were here. The access into Living Memorial Park, how goes it? Is your discussions with the town and the development agreement whereby the town would have access, I think emergency access as well?
Yeah,
Is that continued in the plan?
The response there is pretty positive. To have another way into not only this development, but to the other condominiums that doesn't cross this bridge is viewed as an asset.
Okay. And it looks like, I forget the name of the house, the Party House, as it was occasionally referred to. That's not a part of this application
That
then?
will now remain as a single family, or as a standalone lot.
Okay, not for the use of the people, members, the unit owners, whomever. Okay. Persistence pays off.
We heard you.
All right, so
And access to the Clark House, the Party House, that
remains the same.
Remains the same, doesn't change.
Yeah, they have a driveway.
It comes up through this gated driveway.
Well, the
Is
gate
it
would
that
probably
little
be
house is
beyond-
right there?
beyond
The
the
gate's
front.
going to have to be south of them.
Yeah.
Correct.
South of them and north of the access from Memorial Park, should that occur.
South. I'm not sure the access to Memorial Park is,
Well, there's a
Well,
dotted line coming across.
but I'm not sure it matters where the gate is.
Oh, it doesn't matter where the gate is, okay.
I think just as long as the people can get to the Clark House
I
without opening a gate.
completely agree.
okay.
I have a question regarding the open space. The 50%, is that just green space? That doesn't include the road, like the area of the space that, I think that would be roads, right? I mean, I understand it could be like decks or patios, but it's not.
It doesn't include the paved areas.
Okay. Or
there's-
parking areas or
Or
things
parking
like.
areas, right, yeah.
Craig, can you remind me of this?
That's that space up in the left-hand corner, right?
Well, this alone wouldn't create the right ratio. It also includes these steep slopes here and steep
Oh,
slopes
okay.
here, and it may include park and square space within the
Oh, okay.
development. But there would be enough land outside of this development proper to meet that requirement.
Right, well, the last time it was the wetlands thing, so that's up in the
Yeah, there's
corner.
there's
Okay.
wetlands here, there's actually some wetlands in this
Yeah.
area, and there's flood hazard in there as well.
And the open space restrictions for PRDs are significantly different than the open space restrictions for PUDs. And the open space requirement for a PUD, I think, is 20% of the net area.
Yeah.
Is it, what is the open space, is it 50%? And the total ground area covered with impervious surfaces shall not exceed 40%.
40%.
So really, I mean, it's almost an impervious surface requirement. I mean, if you can have up to 40%,
Yeah.
I mean, there are some,
You'd have some seriously.
right, I mean, what's a representative sample of a 40% impervious surface in the town of Brattleboro? That's a pretty well-developed lot.
Pretty well, it's an urban lot, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other members of the board have questions regarding this application? Any members of the public have questions or comments regarding this application? Hello. I'm sorry, were you here earlier when we swore in
No.
folks to testify?
I was not.
Do you hereby affirm that the testimony you are about to give under the cause under consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Just have a question.
Oh, and if you could identify yourself.
Jane Sontag from Brookside Condos. So the Clark House, the access coming up the road next to Clark House, that would be gated. And then the one from Memorial Park is still under discussion, that's by the skating rink? Is that behind the skating rink?
It would come between the skating rink and the Clark House and go south of the Clark House, or further away from
Further away.
Evergreen.
On the uphill side.
Uphill side.
So actually not between your building and the Clark House.
But on the other side of
Beyond,
Clark
yeah.
House, like behind the skating rink, at
Exactly.
the base of that hillside.
It would be on the, north side of the skating rink and the south side of Clark House. Because the road comes down along the downhill side of the skating rink, and then, that's where the access to the rink is, and then it would
Around the skating
jog.
rink.
Around the back.
The skating rink
Yep.
is here, and here's the skating rink is about here, and here are the Evergreen
Right.
and Robin Way condos. So the access would be along this skating rink and then
Behind.
south, behind.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
And do you envision that to be an emergency access, or is that meant to be an ingress and egress access to, what is that over there? What's the street that runs?
Oh, Guilford Street.
Guilford Street.
It's for vehicular. It's only emergency.
Okay.
Hopefully for path.
It'd be the footpath.
Okay.
For the footpath, you have footpath.
Guess I know that you're not committing to this layout as a concept plan, and we're not considering site plan. But it would appear to me that should you consider that access there as an emergency access, then the road system that connects to that has to be developed out too. I mean, either it's going to go north, or you're going to have a fire engine or an ambulance or whatever it is. I mean, the reason for having an emergency access here is in the event of the failure of the bridge, let's say, or not being able to get in down there.
Yeah.
So somebody has to come in by Memorial Park.
Yeah.
Therefore, in terms of the development or the subdivision, when you get to the subdivision where the road structure goes, that has to connect to something. I know you're showing me
into the road loop, right?
into the road loop.
Yes,
That
right.
therefore means the road loop has to be developed for it to be an effective emergency access.
Yep.
Either that, or you turn.
Or it could go south.
If you go south,
I could go
you could
north.
go south.
You could go north.
It's either got to go north or south.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could go north, and that'd be.
That's what I mean. North, go north and loop back around.
Yeah, but the intent here is to get into the development. So I think you're right. This road would have to be part of the development.
Yes.
I
Well,
think-
part
I
of the
think-
initial stages of the development. If we're making, when we get to site plan, if we're making a requirement that an emergency access, alternative emergency access, be made through to Memorial Park, then that has to connect to something as a part of, let's call it phase one.
Yes.
And will that be gated too, or that's not gated? Because just curious
Oh, right.
about.
To as the idea of cars coming down in through here. Yeah. I guess that would be gated as well. That's a good point.
That was my earlier point. Sorry.
Yeah. Pablo,
the
like
gate
that.
would be
Yeah,
on
but I
this.
just kinda
the
came
gate
up-
would be on this
Yes.
and this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions from members of the public regarding this application?
I just,
Sorry.
So they're asking for a preliminary plat review, but we don't know like what the subdivision's exactly going to be. So what are we approving? I guess.
Yeah, that's a good
It's a
question.
tricky one.
And, the last time the applicant was here,
Yeah.
we got to the same point.
Right.
And what I suspect we'll do tonight is maybe take a straw vote, but really, the DRB doesn't make its decision until it issues its written findings, its
So
decision.
we're not bound by any, like, approving the preliminary?
I'll
today?
circulate a draft
Okay.
based on probably similar conditions that were proposed and drafted in our last approval. Pretty substantially curtailed because we have far fewer moving parts to this application than we did to that application. We don't have changes in zoning. We have densities that are conforming in the district, and we've deferred the tough decisions for a little bit later.
Okay.
But I'll circulate a draft of that decision for everyone to review and approve.
Okay.
Except for the lot line adjustment.
Right.
We will do
That's
the
a subdivision.
We'll do the subdivision tonight.
Can I? There were two other pictures.
I'm sorry, that probably shouldn't, that was just...
These are beyond my comprehension.
I know, I saw this one.
I'm sorry,
I did look at them and go...
That's for developing the butters list. That was really only necessary for Brian's package.
Thank you.
Any further questions regarding this application?
Well, it looked like the town planning department had some issues with the form-based code. I guess they, well, let's hear it. They said that they were wondering how, where was I reading it? They were wondering how, I guess, enforcement of the code, so would Brian then be, no, because any time it gets developed, it would have to come before us. Okay.
I think the answer to that is any land development that occurs inside the PUD, still PRD, still has to come to us. We haven't handed the keys to anybody.
Okay.
And so that land development still has to occur. Any development or any activity on the site which is inconsistent with the form-based code could be enforced in the same way that the zoning administrator can now enforce inconsistencies with the underlying zoning district. So if somebody is building without a proper site plan review by the board, that's an action that the zoning administrator can take. If somebody is violating setbacks, that's an action the zoning administrator can take. So the form-based code would be adopted, and the land development would have to comply with that code.
Okay. And they also said, are we the ones that should be approving that? I guess they're saying that.
We are no shrinking violets on this Brattleboro Development Mtg. Yes, we are the ones to approve that. Looking for a motion to approve application
Into this separately, or the other?
2011-37 subdivision request for minor plat approval to adjust the boundary line.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and
Were there
second.
any changes to it?
I didn't have any.
Was the right of ways defined? I just wasn't sure.
No, they're as drafted, so their conditions already in there. So we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. I abstain. That carries 601. And we'll take a straw vote, but again, our decisions are determined by our. Well, you know what? Just to be even more clear, I will just close the evidentiary hearing on application 2011. So the 45-day decision period commences today, and we will issue a written decision based on our discussion and the previous approval within 45 days, and probably significantly shorter than that.
Motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing?
2011-39.
Sure. Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Any second? All those in favor of closing application 2011-039, please say aye.
Aye.
And that carries 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I'll call application 2011-40, appeal of a zoning administrator's act.
I think we should hold on to this one.
Yeah. keep it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And as the applicant comes up here, I'll remind the board exactly what we're doing. Not only are we a
Oh, yes,
board
this is like-
with
that's
jurisdiction to
what-
hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro, we are actually the appellate court, effectively, for those folks who wish to appeal the decision of the zoning administrator. Brian Bannon is the town zoning administrator. He's also our clerk, so for the purposes of this hearing, we'll go without a clerk, and we will hear an appeal of the zoning administrator's action, which is a rejection of an application to build a storage shed and fencing at 353 William Street. Please tell us about your project.
Hi, okay. I'd like to build two portable storage sheds, 8 by 20. See if I filled it out for. And my residence. And a fence to cover up a couple of project cars.
Two storage sheds.
Portable.
What do you mean by portable?
Either purchase them from Home Depot or build them myself.
Okay, so
There'll be.
they're movable. You can.
Yep, they can move them around.
Concrete
Usually
pads
there's
or.
no, there's no concrete. From cinder blocks or round and round.
Okay. And what's the purpose of those?
I have a hobby. I like to restore GTOs, and I have 2 of them now that I want to do, and hand down to my boys later. And I need to get the parts in the sheds to keep them covered up from view, so the yard don't look messy. And
Okay.
Brian had suggested I build 2 sheds.
And so we have some comments from the zoning administrator regarding the current status of the property, but let's revisit that. The last time you were here was quite a while ago.
I'll do a last time I was here, I was trying to add on to my home occupation.
Okay. And
Nothing's changed, it's the same as it was.
yeah, but I think we had requested, to the extent we request, we may have stated that you needed to reduce the number of vehicles on the property. That the number of vehicles,
Considerably.
yeah, the number of
Yeah.
vehicles and the mix of vehicles were not consistent with the home occupation.
Yeah, there's,
How's that project going?
well, we got rid of several cars. We got rid of all the cars that I don't use.
Okay.
They're gone. Yard's all cleaned up.
I believe we had
Very clean.
identified a
Graded.
specific number of cars. Are you down to the specific number of cars that were stated in that approval, that decision?
I'm not exactly sure what we talked about for a number of cars.
Okay.
But it is extremely a lot lower.
Brian, can you?
All registered, right? Well, the cars, right now, all the cars that have in my driveway are registered to run drive.
They're registered to whom?
Me, my girlfriend, my boys.
Who else?
That's it.
Do they all live at the property?
No, just my girlfriend.
And your children, you have vehicles
3 boys.
registered, children? 3? So how many total vehicles do you have registered? How many total vehicles are on your property now?
Right now, hang on a second, let me count them. About 12, give or take.
Try
without
19.
Being there. There's 19 down there now?
Yep, 19 vehicles, including the wrecker, a couple of other trucks. You have 2 boats and trailers and a box truck for storage.
Well, I wasn't counting the boats. I was
I
talking
put
about
them separate.
cars. Yeah, yeah. The
But there are
box
there are
trailer-
19 cars and trucks there.
There's 19, okay. Well,
And so 19 vehicles are registered to you?
there's, my son just bought a Mustang, a Shelby Cobra. It's not registered yet, he's he sent parts out to get repaired on it.
All right, so not all the vehicles are
No,
registered.
not all of them are done, just recently, I just bought one myself, I'm waiting for a title so I can get it registered.
So that's 2 not registered. How many are we going to get to?
Volvo. Yeah.
How many? How many?
2000 Volvo.
Okay, so the other 17 are registered?
Yep.
Okay, so we have 2 non-registered and 17 registered.
Yep.
How many of those 17 are?
Well, there's more that
What-
are
what-
registered,
what-
but they're
what-
not.
got more than 2?
They're not there.
I'm sorry, what's
They're
that?
out on the road, they're gone.
There are 19 vehicles. We just heard that there are 19 vehicles on the site. We've talked about 2 vehicles that aren't registered. Now, what's this? Some vehicles are off-site. What does that mean?
Well, my boy's driving one. All 3 of my boys are driving one right now. The
So-
box truck is not registered.
Okay, so that's 3.
It's been, it's a box truck. It's storage.
Okay, what do you mean by its storage?
Been using it
We're moving from a place where all the vehicles on the site are registered, and we're moving towards, well, not all the vehicles are registered, and we're adding up the vehicles that aren't registered. So now we're at 3, so let's keep going. Any others that are not registered?
The box truck is just storage.
Right.
And that's what I want to replace with a storage shed.
Okay, but the Shelby and the other one aren't. So now we're at,
We
so
just-
3, so we have 14 vehicles. Are the other 14 vehicles registered?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All currently registered?
Yep.
Of those 17, how many are currently operating?
Operating, well, some of them are summer cars, like.
How many are currently
GTOs.
operating?
They all run drive.
So if we went there, we could turn the keys and drive 17 vehicles other than the box truck.
The box
16
truck,
vehicles.
My son's car will not start because he sent it out, the
Okay.
motor out to get it repaired. The box truck has got a motor in it. Well, the boats we don't want to start, they're dry. My minivan will run, but I blew the tranny in it, thanks to a local parts store in town. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Brian, do you remember how many vehicles were we, did our last approval mention?
I realized it didn't actually have a restriction.
It didn't have a specific number of vehicles?
No, it didn't, but for the purposes of enforcement, it would be extremely helpful for me, and as it was, if we could have a set number of registered cars that can be allowed, and a set number of non-registered vehicles that could be allowed.
Okay.
The state of Vermont says I'm allowed three, I do want to consider them junk cars or unregistered cars. And Brian is saying no. So, and my lawyer asked Brian, we really don't have a straight answer. We don't know.
You don't know how many vehicles?
Well, we researched it, and it says, I mean, I've had it in black and white, I gave it to Brian. It says the state of Vermont says they're going to have 3 unregistered cars visible from anywhere on my property at any time. I removed those, there was only 2. There was only 2 cars that, my project cars, I removed them. He asked, I did, I got rid of them. And then I hired a lawyer to help me figure out what he's talking about, but I'm not being able to have any unregistered cars. No junk cars in the yard at all, project cars. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed project cars in the driveway. That's why I'm here now. He wants me to put my project cars behind a fence. That is part of my application, putting these project cars behind the fence and the parts in the sheds. That's why I'm here now.
I see 3 sheds on your sketch, and we were talking about 2 a couple
Well,
of minutes ago.
there's a truck I have been using for storage. Brian, he came to, I'm not exactly sure what the situation was in the box truck, whether he gave me permission to have it or not, because he okayed it when he came down the last time to cure the last violation.
Is this box truck one of the sheds we're talking about?
Yeah, well, it's one of the, I'm using it for storage right now.
Is it on your map here? The one between the house and the garage?
That's another shed that was there when I was cured the last time, and it was, he didn't say anything about not being able to keep it, so when he cured me the last time, I'm assuming it was okay.
Just clarify a little bit for Mr. Gillespie.
Sure, go ahead.
There have been a number of violations, and Mr. Gillespie has worked with me to try and cure them. The violation he's referring to was maybe a year ago. At that point, I asked him to consider applying for sheds for his storage, and I allowed that he could continue using the box truck and the
Little shed next to the garage?
the truck box.
Yeah, it's box.
In the
It's
interim.
portable. It's not on cement or nothing.
But
Just sitting on the ground.
neither of those had permits, and both of them are in violation of the code.
These sheds are 8 by 20. That sounds like something pretty heavy to pick up and walk around with.
Well, I have a truck that can move them. Very easily. Right now, they'd have to be empty though, but I can move them. They're portable. Those, and if I could back up a second.
Sure.
2 years ago, I filled out a permit application to have those, and I never got an answer. 2.5 years ago. And I was told if he didn't answer within 30 days, it was automatically granted. So he
To
finally
clarify
answered me
that-
He finally answered me by phone on my cell phone, and he's sorry he did not get back to me. So this is the reapplication actually, today's. This is the second time I've done it.
Okay,
I
Brian?
just want to get this stuff, I just want to get these parts inside and covered up.
And so you're proposing though to have it within the side yard setback?
I can put the boxes anywhere. And you pick a spot, we'll put them there.
But I guess that wasn't your issue, you just thought
They're portable.
because it's more storage, I guess?
They're just going to be parts for my hobby cars.
I thought
I'm allowed.
Because at this point, the storage on the site exceeds the area of the residence by a large margin. And that seems to me to be a non-conforming parcel. So
There's also a state law that says, as a citizen in the state of Vermont, or even in Brattleboro, I'm allowed to have hobbies. That's the new law. If you want to see it, I'm sure Brian's got a copy of it.
Okay, let's reframe the discussion here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here for 2 boxes. And the fence
All
to cover
right,
it.
I understand. And we'll get to the 2 boxes. Just want to continue our discussion from the last time you were here, moving in the right direction. So this is your residence.
This is my residence. I have a home occupation.
And you have a home occupation. Not a home business, a home occupation. I'm not sure you want a home occupation.
They changed it, but I did not reapply for the home business.
Okay.
I left it as a home occupation because there were some benefits from it.
Okay. Home occupations are favored in Vermont. We'd like to have home occupations. We think they're a good idea, and I think we may have even alluded to it in an earlier application. But there is a difference between a home application and a home business. I'm sorry, a home occupation and a home business. A home occupation is what you do inside your home.
Yep.
It can't be an external activity such that one would notice the home occupation if you drove by the house. So just going to go through it real quickly. A home occupation says, as it needs to say because of state law, no regulation herein is intended to infringe upon the right of any resident to use a minor portion of a dwelling for an occupation that is customary in residential areas, does not change the character thereof, including but not limited to sewing, crafts, or an office for work performed off-site. Okay, so home occupations happen inside the house. Nobody can see it.
That's what I'm doing.
No. That's not what you're doing. This storage and these...
It's a hobby.
That's different than a home occupation. We're still talking about home occupations. That's different than home occupation. You're not... What you are proposing and the renovations and the repairs that you are discussing are not your home occupation.
No, they're totally different.
Okay, great.
Yes.
We got that. We're in agreement that it's not a home occupation.
No, it's
okay.
not. It has nothing
Is
to
it?
do with it has nothing to do with my business.
Okay. What is your business?
Towing.
Okay. So let's talk about that. As a home business, but you don't have a home business permit to conduct a towing operation from that location? Because one can imagine having a towing business as a home occupation if all you did is picked up the phone and got calls for towing jobs in your house, and then maybe you have a vehicle that's parked in the driveway and you go, or maybe your vehicle is parked elsewhere, you're towing a vehicle. But it seems that your use of the property exceeds picking up a call for towing. You have other implements of your business lying about the yard.
No.
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 Okay. What else? What do you have in your yard then?
Well, the car is my tow truck, but my tow truck's the only thing I use with my business.
Okay, so there's one tow truck.
Yeah.
Great.
My
And
hobby has
that
nothing
was
to do with
that
the
was
home
cleared up in
business.
the last application. We said the tow truck is fine. Right.
Yeah.
The last time you were here, we said the tow truck is fine. It's part of your home occupation.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, all of this other stuff is not a home business or a home occupation.
No.
Okay. What is it?
My hobby?
Your hobby. Okay. Now.
Okay, so you're telling me that I cannot have a hobby now?
No, I'm telling you, under the zoning ordinance in Brattleboro, all equipment and vehicles stored outside shall be behind the front yard setback and screened from view. How many of your 17 vehicles right now are screened from view? I'm not saying, I'm not imposing any restriction. This board is not going to impose a restriction on your ability to have a hobby, but you have to have a hobby that's in conformance with the zoning ordinance. And one of the things that the zoning ordinance says is that you can't view the storage of vehicles.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
I'm trying to put the stuff out of view. That's why I want the fence and the boxes.
Right.
That's what I'm asking for.
But if you have 17 vehicles,
Those have nothing to do with the business.
I understand.
They're personal.
If you have 17 vehicles, not all of which are registered, not all of which run, not all of which are even still vehicles, some have been chopped up into
There's nothing chopped up.
storage.
There's no junk in my yard.
Okay, there's a box truck.
Well,
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just one junk truck in the driveway.
If you have that many vehicles, we can't build a building big enough that's going to conform in the district to hide them all. So we have too many vehicles on this property.
They're personal.
I understand. But we have too many vehicles on this property. There is the ability to have too many personal vehicles on a piece of property in
So you're telling me there's a
Brattleboro.
limit? You're telling me the town has a limit on registered cars by driveway?
I'm trying to say that we need to, unless we want to just keep doing this. It's
that's
fine. I
fine.
come here every once a month. I'm happy to do it. If you want to keep doing it, Brian wants to keep doing it, we can keep doing it.
You're telling me there's a
But I'm trying to say either we're going to come to a resolution or we're just going to keep doing this again and again and again.
Okay, you're telling me there's going to be a limit on cars that everybody in town of Brattleboro can have their driveway, including me?
Sure.
If there is, how many are there? What's the number?
Well, it's less than 19.
Okay, what's the number?
Well, we're not gonna play that game.
No, I
We're
want
gonna
to
talk
know,
about.
I want to conform so I can build my boxes.
Right.
I want to build my storage sheds.
Okay,
put my
so
stuff
we're going to
away.
talk about what it is that you want to build and what's a reasonable, because I think the number of vehicles you're going to get are all going to have to fit into what's a reasonable amount of storage on the space. So let's talk about what's reasonable amount of storage as an accessory dwelling. How many accessory dwellings does one get in the town of Brattleboro? In a residential lot?
Accessory dwellings or
It's accessory buildings.
structures?
Accessory structures.
We don't have a limit on them, but they do have to be smaller than the
Main
primary
house.
use, the residence.
Yeah, otherwise
8 by
the
20.
primary use would flip.
Yes, exactly. In this case, the primary use is large.
Okay.
So how many vehicles can you put in an 8 by 20?
One.
So that means you'd have to have 17 of them.
I could not get one car in an 8 by 20. That's way too small.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this
we're
is just-
talking 8 feet by 20 feet.
This is just for your parts then?
Just get them out of the way.
Yeah, but none of the vehicles,
No,
none of these vehicles will be stored out
in
out
those.
of sight. In the
Oh,
setback,
in the
out of
set-
sight.
no, no.
Okay. But that's a problem. That's a problem because outside storage, all equipment and vehicles stored outside shall be behind the front yard setback and screened from view.
All parked vehicles. All parked, all junks should be screened from.
All equipment and vehicles stored outside.
Yes.
What is that relating to? All parts shall be stored.
Outside storage, it's a specific definition.
Outside storage shall be, outside storage
So-
of what?
This is the definition of what you can store outside. All
These are the general regulations
Oh, okay.
under the municipal ordinance of Brattleboro.
The last time I probably drove one was probably November, December, January, February, March, April, May, probably 6 months ago.
I think the board will take judicial notice that putting a car and leaving it for 6 months is storing it. You're not driving it, you're storing it. If something sits in your yard for 6 months, you're storing it. Okay.
Registered?
Yes. Registered or not registered. This doesn't
You
talk
are-
about
so
that.
you-
So
okay.
you are storing vehicles on your property and they're not being properly screened.
Driven.
They're,
Want me to drive them? I'll drive them.
you can't change your past behavior, and I'm not looking for future promises. You have stored property on your lot that's in non-conformance with the zoning ordinance. So you're in violation of the zoning ordinance, and I believe that Mr. Bannon has issued you a zoning violation. You're not here to appeal that zoning violation. You go somewhere else to appeal those zoning violations. That is not
Yeah.
in our bailiwick. Okay.
So you're telling me you want me to put them behind the fence, all of them? If you want me to build a fence, I'll
I'm
do
telling
that.
you that if the zoning administrator wishes to bring a zoning enforcement action stating that you have stored vehicles without proper screening,
Wait.
I'm saying he's got a good case.
What do you mean by screening?
So they can't be seen.
Oh, they can't be seen. Oh, okay. All
From
right.
view.
Screened from view.
All right.
Okay.
Consider the trees in front of the house a screen, bushes.
Yeah. If you want to propose a
And
site
hedge.
plan that screens those vehicles, we'll talk about it. Okay. So we can continue to do this,
Okay.
and we'll just go around and around, and we'll get answers that are half answers, and we'll get positions that are not supportable by the evidence, and we'll be back here again and again, or we can try to
all right.
chart a path towards some resolution that doesn't keep you in front of us and at odds with the zoning department.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. You are storing vehicles on your property. If you can't get to that resolution, then I don't know what we can do tonight. Because you have vehicles that have been on the property that haven't been driven for 6 months, that are incapable of being driven now and aren't registered. I can't think of any other way to describe them as being stored. And that storage is impermissible in the way it is now. So let's figure out a way to store the vehicles you can have and limit the number of vehicles to a reasonable amount that can be stored and located in a proper fashion.
Okay.
Okay. How many vehicles? You've requested 2 new sheds of 8 by 20 each. Those are meant to serve how many vehicles? The parts for how many vehicles?
I can probably put steel motors, probably enough parts for 2 cars in both those sheds to restore.
Okay. So that's four cars or so?
No, that's the most I can put in. Depends. I can't put the whole cars in because the whole cars would be ridiculous. So we're talking just 10 interior doors, fenders, probably enough for 2 cars.
Okay.
A piece, each shed.
No, total.
Total?
Yeah.
Okay. And so how many many other, because the home is 14 by 55, so that's 750 square feet or so. How many square feet of storage do we think is there?
Do we count
Each of the
garage?
sheds is 160.
1586 if you were going to permit all of it. There's 900 in the garage,
900.
160 in 3 sheds.
And then there's also the box truck and the truck box, which are also.
Oh, yeah, because that's not even. Okay.
And we have close on twice the storage and accessory structure. Sorry, twice the square footage and accessory structures than the main house, than the dwelling.
Do you sell any of these cars?
Nothing's for sale.
I'm trying to be very careful with the way I ask a question,
Yeah.
so I'm going to ask you to be very careful with the way you answer it.
Yeah.
Have you sold any of these vehicles? I know nothing is for sale.
Of these vehicles?
Of the vehicles that we discussed and in the ordinary course, do you sell, how often do you sell a vehicle off of your...
I haven't sold a car. Well, I'll tell you, I am trying to sell 1 or 2 of them, but
Wait. Stop. The first answer you gave me was, none of these cars are for sale. And then we talk about it a little more, and then you say, well, 1 or 2 of these are for sale.
I will sell 1 or 2 of them, but majority of them are not for sale. If I was offered the right price,
Right,
I'd sell it.
I understand. But a majority of them are not for sale. Is
No,
it far
no,
different than
no.
none of these vehicles are for
A
sale?
majority of these cars are not for sale.
I'm going to take just a 5-minute recess. Okay, I'll call the May 16, 2011 Brattleboro Development Review Board meeting back to order. And I don't know, maybe what we should do is horse trade. Yeah, we'll come to some number and location and registration and use of the vehicles that is acceptable to you, it's acceptable to the zoning administrator and the planning department of the town of Brattleboro, and we'll just be done with it. Because unless unless I'm missing something and the rest of the board thinks I'm crazy, your current use, storage, permitting, registration, and sale of vehicles at the property is not consistent with the description in the zoning ordinance and the idea of the hobby that you're describing. So, you have 19 vehicles. We've already listed the infirmities of at least a half dozen of them. It would make sense to me that the vehicles need to be, at the very least, registered. That they be not storage vehicles, but that they be operating vehicles, and that they be vehicles that are, in fact, operated on a regular basis.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
And we'll come up with that number shortly.
Tonight? Or
I would like to, Mr. Zoning Administrator, is there any desire on the part of the Planning Services Department in the town of Brattleboro to horse trade, or should we just issue our decision tonight?
The planning department hasn't made comments on this.
Yeah?
I only see clarity.
What's that?
He seeks clarity.
You only seek clarity? Okay. We may have moved from a situation on your property that is no longer a junkyard. And right, I don't know that we have, but the condition on the site has gotten better than it was at its worst during your tenure, Brian?
Yes, I don't think it qualifies as a junkyard anymore.
Great, and we appreciate that. that is a wonderful move in the right direction. And these vehicles, they seem to be more operable.
When you say cars in my yard, we're talking Mercedes, GTOs, Mustangs. They're good-looking cars.
Sure, but even 50 Mercedes are not to be in somebody's residential property in the town of Brattleboro.
Okay.
So let's come up with a number. 10 is just such a nice round
number.
easy number.
20.
10 is 10 a number that is palatable to the zoning, the planning services department in Brattleboro.
That seems like a reasonable number for residential use.
10 cars and a couple sheds.
Okay, and just to be clear, I'm going to make this painfully clear on the record that your property, because of its location and its prior use, is a special type of property. I am not proclaiming that every lot in the town of Brattleboro gets 10 cars. I can't put 10 in my yard. My yard is too small. It's too densely compact, and it's too residential. Your property has special characteristics that suggest that it can have more cars, maybe than any other lot in the town of Brattleboro. And so let's say 10 vehicles. And let's say that these vehicles, all 10 of them, not some of them, not a majority of them, all of them, need to be registered, and they need to be operable, and they in fact need to be operated on a regular basis.
That's fine.
Lest they become stored.
How long are you considered stored?
Okay,
How much time frame?
I'm in the mood for round numbers. How about 6 months, half a year? You have your summer cars.
Yep.
You can store them in the winter, but when the leaves return in spring, the cars need to be driven. If they can't be driven, then they're being stored, and if they're stored, they need to be out of sight.
That's fine.
Okay, so 10 vehicles. This is gonna be the new.
Okay, you were talking about horse trading. What am I giving up the rest of the cars for? A shed or two?
We're going to talk about that in a second, but what we're horse trading is if you don't do what we decide to do tonight, we're going to rule on the decision regarding the violation.
All right.
Okay. So, but mind you, let's be very clear: 10 vehicles, if they are registered, and if they're operable, and if they are in fact operated, means you're not storing them. Okay. And so we get away from the requirement that they have to be hidden from view. I don't have to hide my vehicle. I have 2 vehicles. I don't have to hide my vehicle in my yard because my vehicles are registered, operable, and operated so that they don't need to be hidden from view. We're saying there are special, unique characteristics of your property that would allow 10 vehicles to be those 3 things.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about storage. You have too much storage on your property now. You have so much storage on your property that you have more storage space than you have residential space, and you're about to flip from being primarily residential to being primarily something else. Okay? So we're going to cap the storage on your lot at total storage on your lot at what is 14 times 55? 750 or so?
770.
770. Okay, we're going to cap the total amount of storage on your facility, on your lot, at 770 square feet.
Correct.
Okay?
So that excludes the 900 square foot garage.
He has a 900 square foot garage, which is already bigger than that.
That's sitting on an existing foundation too.
I mean, under normal circumstances, the garage would be an accessory structure which exceeds the definition of
Right, which is why Brian put in here.
accessory
that was
structure.
the primary.
It's the garage is bigger than the home.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it on the
I
map.
know.
30 by 30 and 14 by 55. 30 by 30 is 900.
Okay, how many cars do you store in the 30 by 30 garage?
Store right now just 2 that he made me take out of the yard.
No, okay. There's a truck bed. How big is the truck bed?
It's about 12 by 20. It's a little bit bigger than what I'm requesting. The other box.
12 by
the
20?
wooden sheds are 8 by 20.
And then
the
how-
boxes are about.
The truck is 12 foot wide?
Well, it's a regular truck box off a truck.
Yeah.
With it's white. It's got a roll up door. I don't know what it was about.
That'd be
About
9
9
foot wide.
feet wide.
9 feet wide,
Yeah,
yeah.
about
Okay.
9 feet wide. 9 by. I think the one by the garage is about 9 by 16. I'm not positive. I haven't measured it for a while.
Okay.
Somewhere between 16 and 20.
You got 2 trucks?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Two body, one body.
I've got 2 of them. I would not mind leaving those where they're at. Using those for the storage. I could leave them where they're at. Maybe even cover them up or cover them with wood or.
Leaving those, so
Leave
you
them
wouldn't
there.
seek the two new sheds. You would
Would
just
be
use.
those. I could dress them up, make them look good, put a roof on them or something. Whatever would satisfy you.
Which would you prefer to do? Use the
I would
existing
yes, I would prefer to use the existing as storage.
The
It-
truck.
and no new storage,
No new storage.
or would you prefer to have the new storage and get rid of the old ones?
I don't think using box trucks like that has actually been formed.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of box structures in Brattleboro. A lot of them.
Huh? Where?
LaCroix rents them out. They're all over town. I just saw a 55 footer in West Brattleboro. 55 feet long.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I haven't read them in violation.
They got one on William Street.
You mean they're like trailers?
Yeah,
It's a steel trailer.
They're well, mine is an
I've seen
actual
one. Is
box with siding on it. It's white. There's a lot of them in town. They don't even have siding on them. Just overseas crates.
Do you have wheels on this truck? On that truck
Nope,
bed?
there's no wheels on
There's
it.
no
One does,
chassis?
one don't.
Sorry?
One does and one don't.
In the interest of just being done with it, I would prefer that those two go away and that you actually get and implement the new sheds that you've identified.
I would do that too.
Okay, so
Well,
let's be very.
Well, I would do it either way.
What's that?
Let's talk about location.
Okay, we're going to talk about location. So let's revisit where we have so far. Okay, because this is it. We're done. Because I have another 3 years on this board, and I'm never going to talk about this again. We are 10 vehicles, operatable, operated, and all registered.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We will allow 2 new sheds. We're going to talk about the location of those new sheds.
Yep. Okay.
But what has to leave is the box, the truck that's there, and then the
Okay.
and then
I
the-
understand what you're saying, but one more problem.
what? Okay.
I've got a broken foot right now, and whatever you give me a time
Well,
frame.
yeah, we'll give you some time.
Okay.
We're going to give you some. I understand this is going to take a little time.
My
We'll-
heel is broke.
We'll give you some time, no
Yeah.
problem. Okay, and then but those 2 things, that box truck and the was
The
it
little
like
box.
the
Both boxes.
the other box?
Yeah, they're both
Two
the same
boxes.
thing. One's on wheels, one's
They
not.
go.
Yep.
They're off your property. They're
Yep.
not moved. They're not used for storage. They're gone.
And put the sheds in place of them.
And then you can put the sheds in place. Now, where do you want to locate those
Right
sheds?
where they are now is fine.
Right where they are, meaning replacing the current location
Yes.
of these.
No, put them right where they are now. Put one next to the garage, one over in the corner.
Okay.
Can you show that to us on the,
Yep.
on the
Is
map?
that a decent spot for them?
No, Brian wants to put them
I'll
somewhere
come
else.
over to you. Stay there.
One
Where-
here and one there.
Where would that be on this plan?
The box truck right now is here.
There's a box there?
Yep. And
the
this
other
is
one?
the other one's right there.
I don't understand.
Yeah. I got a wood pile here and a wood pile here.
This is old.
Okay. Where are they?
So, the current, there's one adjacent to the garage where it says new shed, and there's one here.
Okay.
That's existing.
Those are the 2 box trailers or box trucks that are existing.
And they are 8 by 20.
Yep.
Approximately.
Approximately done.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll put approximate.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I believe we've resolved all the outstanding issues.
May I just...
Carefully.
I've
Carefully. Yes. I don't want to upset the apple cart
No,
here.
no. The clock spring is tightly wound.
Okay.
Okay. The 30 by 30, I'm just talking out loud, the 30 by 30 garage,
Right.
which has a box trailer, box truck next to it,
Sit next to it.
I think the board is happy to have go away and replace with an 8 by 20 shed, I believe.
Sure.
Right.
The one that's at the front, I'm not sure what the location is. I'd like to see that it goes back
Can we
out
put
of
it
the setback.
Can we put it behind
Can we
the
put
house?
it?
Or?
Can we put it? I don't know where
Next to the
I don't
other
know where
one.
it is, but
Sure, I can put it next to the other one.
Why,
you can put it next to the
Or
other
I
one.
can put it.
Would you mind putting it
close
next
to
to
the
the other
house.
one? Could you put two side by side next to the other one? So you have the garage block and then a brand new shed and another brand new shed side by side. Would that work
I
for
think I
you?
could probably squeeze them in. I have to go back and measure it.
Oh.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's leave it like that for now. If you
No,
change
we're
it,
gonna
I'll
put them
write.
both. We're gonna put them both behind the house, adjacent to the garage.
Well, right next to the garage.
Next to the garage.
And we're
On the house side.
We can't go behind the garage, behind the house, because it's too wet.
Okay, but we want them adjacent to the garage.
You got it.
We're gonna. That's the language we're gonna use.
We'll put 'em
Adjacent
there
to the garage.
As long as I can fit them in there.
And if you can't, come talk to Brian. He'll
I'll
work
talk
out
to
a
Brian,
location
we'll work
for you.
something out.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you they need to be adjacent.
Okay.
If it can't be done, you're going to get
I'll talk
Brian's
to Brian,
approval.
we'll come up with something else.
What is the? Can I just? What is the?
And that's it. Now that's it. You're done with storage on this location.
What is the?
You have the garage and these two 8x20 sheds. That's it for storage. No box trucks. No other storage. Inside, outside, doesn't matter. That's it for storage.
For car parks, yeah.
Or
whatever.
For
For whatever.
That's it for storage.
For whatever.
Period.
Yeah.
Full stop. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
What is the setback in the district, Brian?
25 feet,
Okay.
25, 10, 10, 10.
So that's it.
Wherever the.
Those boxes will be at least 150 feet away from the road.
Okay. I would prefer not to see anything in the setback.
Yeah, nothing in the set. We haven't given a setback waiver.
No, I know, but
No waiver. Can't be in the setback. And the final condition is, not only is your property unique, you are unique. This decision, your ability to store the vehicles, your ability to put this much storage on the site in the places where it is, does not run with the land. That this is personal to you. And when you convey this property, this decision will not go with it.
Okay.
The new people will not have the right to put 10 vehicles on their property.
Even
I
family.
know that. They tried changing my lot to
Nobody.
to commercial before I bought it, and I heard they had a really hard time.
I understand
It's a lot of
it's a unique spot down there, and we're going to take that into consideration. That's how we came up with 10. And so I will draft the decision, circulate it to the board, and we'll give you the decision within 45 days.
That's fine.
So I'm looking for a motion to close the evidentiary hearing on application 2011-040.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. I abstain. That carries 601. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cuthbertson, you had some
Okay, I
things
have
to talk about.
I have 2 or 3 things for the board and the department really. And the first was I may be corrected. I thought this was our last meeting as a board, but I now believe we have one more meeting as a board before everyone comes up for re-election.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
No, I'm
June
on
1st or
for
June
another year.
30th.
Sorry,
I'm on for another year.
I know you are.
I am. You're stuck with me.
I was going to encourage those that were up for their terms were up to stand again. I think this board is a well-balanced board. I think the
Yes.
board it's a pleasure to work on, and that the alternates, 2 of which are missing tonight. I'd love to see you come back. Our chair, I'd love to see him come back.
We can make
Dr.
you drive
Chard,
from
I'd love to see you come back. Everyone else gets to stay anyway.
I remember 5 years ago we were a board that had just no experience whatsoever. We had just a couple of years tops, and now we have probably what? Stephen, you have 8 years.
Yeah.
Dr. Chard, you have 6. I have 7. 7, 15, 21. Yeah, how many do you have? You have 6.
I have, I've done
26.
2 and a bit. So
Yeah,
a
so
bit and a bit.
we probably have now 30 some years
Do
of
I
experience
count
at least.
from behind the
Yeah,
camera?
well, yeah. That's a lot. Yes, that would be great.
So I'm encouraging everyone to please put your names up again.
And on that note, I want to thank Gina for her
Yes.
wonderful work that she has done on the board and as an attorney in the town of Brattleboro, and
Yes.
her relocation to a community in another state will be will be a sad day and she'll be sorely missed.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have to take
I've
the bar
fun
in
enjoying-
Massachusetts now?
Yeah.
Mm.
But then,
I'm sorry. go
also,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, I thought about it during the meeting for Brian. I guess I wasn't sure, would my term be up as of May 31st or June 30th? So would I come to the June meeting, or would someone else?
No, it's June 30th.
Oh, okay.
June
I guess
30th
this
is the last day.
last
So,
meeting.
yeah, you'll have another meeting
Yeah.
in June.
Can I ask a very quick procedural question?
Sure.
At the end of Mr. DeLesney's case, we moved to close the evidence. Does that mean we accepted the application, or is there still another motion coming?
No.
I didn't quite understand what happened there.
Yeah, that's a great question. Although we take a vote at the end of the meeting, for the purposes of the decision of the board and importantly, the number of days that the board has to issue its findings, it's the close of the evidentiary hearing that matters. And it's the issuance of the written findings. Let's say we said, all in favor, please say aye, and we voted, we voted 6-0-1 to approve, or more appropriately, if we denied an application, 0-6-1. And then, as I, have come close to doing in the past, I didn't issue written findings within 45 days. If we don't issue a written finding within 45 days, we haven't acted, and the application is deemed approved. So it's very important that the chair and the others on the board prompt the chair to issue those written findings. So technically what we're doing when we are making the straw vote is just that. It's just a straw vote to close the evidentiary hearing for the board to deliberate and issue findings. In some cases, 2 of them tonight, what we'll end up doing is circulating a draft so the board can vote on the draft opinion. And we've done that for kind of the big and complex matters in the
A number
past.
of them, yeah.
You know, when the Grafton Village cheese application came, that's how we did it. When
Brookside.
Brookside,
Yeah, the
before
Brookside one.
we did it.
PUD.
Yeah. And so we'll close the evidentiary hearing, and I'll issue that, and then I will sign it and then hand it to Brian within 45 days of tonight.
Okay.
So that's what we have done in both of those applications. And it's really what we do in every one of the applications, except most of them are so clear, I don't really circulate the draft back to the board because the motion as drafted with any amendments from the floor are clear enough that we don't need to circulate the draft.
Okay.
I have 2 more things, just for general discussion. And Brian, the first is that the distribution of documents. We seem to have a mix right now of some stuff coming electronically, or I do anyway, and some stuff coming in the mail. And I'm presuming that everybody has the capability of receiving stuff electronically or getting emails. That has been questioned in the past, whether that's correct or not. I don't see the point in doing both for anything apart from the major package, which has got plans and copies of applications and all that stuff in. Certainly, when I received email on Friday and then the same documents in the mail on Saturday. It just seems to me to be redundant and a waste of the department's time and money. But unless anyone or the chair has an objection to just receiving this stuff as PDFs, I'm quite happy to receive it as PDFs.
Yes, see, I think that's what happened with the minutes, because it wasn't a PDF, and I couldn't print it out. It was a Google document, and it apparently had a fault or something in it, or something, But
So-
PDFs I
so-
don't have a problem with, as long as it's not 25 pages.
Could you go to you guys must have an intranet or something, don't you? So you could just post them up. And
We go get them?
And we get them.
Basically, we do post everything to Brattleboro.org at this time.
Brattleboro.org?
Yeah.
More than the agenda, even the plans and stuff?
This kind of
Yeah, but maybe I don't know. I mean, we don't have to make the decision now, but maybe the long range plan is we just get an email saying your documents are ready, and then we go to the portal and view them and print them. I do like the oversized documents to get those by mail because then I can just spread them out and look at them. But, the other application materials, I don't need to get.
I mean, I quite honestly could come and, I don't mind coming and pick mine up. I'd rather than having you spend the money and
No,
mailing and everything else.
I'm not gonna.
You
pick them up.
can't, well, I mean,
But I'll forget, and then I'll delay it.
I like getting the documents in my hand.
You mean the package or everything?
Yeah, the package.
But if you've got the minutes electronically,
Yeah, that's fine.
if
yeah.
you've got, the department, for instance, the department's,
Yeah.
Sue's comments.
Anything 8.5 by 11, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Any 8.5 by 11. So it's
Yeah,
just-
not the whole application.
no, the package, the big package, that
Yeah.
should be mailed out.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
got plans,
Yeah.
maps, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But even like the applications, and like, I don't know. Just, because I feel like it could be a lot of paper you would go through. Like a
Well-
personal burden. I guess
Oh, if
like
you're
it-
printing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do print, which is what caused me to do, because I printed out in a matter of hours, Sue's notes, or Susan's notes, and then I get it in the mail. I'm going, huh? So now it's been printed twice, and it's got a 64-cent stamp on it, and an envelope. What's the point? Okay, Matt, go
for
on,
what
sorry.
it's worth, on the planning commission, I prefer to receive my stuff electronically. They do it for me electronically because I asked, and they're quite gracious. Other people like the mail, they do the mail. I mean, I think there's a capability for us to have some discretion, right?
If everybody would like to email me with their personal preferences.
There we go.
Okay,
There we
fine.
go.
And then the last thing, which was, and I'm sure I want Craig's opinion on this, is that I read an article or read some comments recently about circulation or communication between individuals on boards in the municipal environment, where it wasn't copied or circulated to the entire board, and that kind of side conversations, say, going on between me and Gina about something.
Well, that
or
was
me
just
and
brought up
Craig,
at the select board last meeting.
That we should copy everybody. I mean, in a funny kind of way, it goes against my core thinking, which is there's lots of noise that goes on in my email, and I wish sometimes I didn't get copies on everybody's thoughts on everything on all the time. And it's like, why don't they just take it offline and cut me out of the loop? But on the other hand, in terms of transparency, it's implied that, I mean, if you're going to invite me to dinner, or you want to buy me a beer, or send me flowers, that's okay. But if it's relating to...
all in one
or all
great
in one,
date.
yeah, in one great day.
So
But
we also have to abide by the open documents. The
Yeah,
open
we have-
meeting law.
Yeah.
The open meeting law, and I haven't read the new open meeting law revisions, but they are more expansive, and we do have to abide by the open meeting law. The technical answer is we'd have two things to think about. One is we have if we start to sequentially share that information, even if it's asynchronous, I think that we have had a meeting. If I send you an email and say something snarky about an applicant, which I never have, and then you pass it on to another member, and then that's passed on to a fourth member, I think under the open meeting law interpretation, we've just had a meeting. 4 members of the board have talked about an application before it, and we haven't warned it, and that's a big problem. So clearly we shouldn't do that. I think in the 5 years or 6 years 5 years I've been chair, I don't think I have sent 10 emails regarding stuff that isn't. I think I've sent 10 total, and I think of those 10 have been purely administrative. And I've never once discussed the contents of an application with anyone else, and I don't think any of us, ever.
Anyone else on the board?
Yeah.
Now let me give you an example. We did, and we're talking about doing it now, just in our last sponsor, is that you're going to write out a decision on 1 or 2 of the applications, right? And then you could send that out to the entire board, which you will. And then I'm going to respond to Craig only, possibly, saying, Craig, I think that there's a misunderstanding about point 7c, paragraph 12c, and I'm going to send that to you only. Conceivably.
I think we should send it to everybody.
That's what I'm just saying.
So you just hit reply all.
It should be reply all.
Yeah.
And in the past, I personally may have not done reply all. I might have just gone, Craig or Brian or whatever, you know, this
No.
is my thought on that, please fix it.
I think we should do reply
Reply
all,
all in those
consider it to
situations.
be, you know, on the record, and
Yeah.
consider it to be discoverable. That, you know, it'll be a part of the appeal if there's an appeal.
Yeah,
That, you know, our email communication is going to be just that is going to be subject to the open meeting law. Even if it's, you know.
Can I just make one other point about it too, and that's, this came up in a discussion I had at another town meeting this week, and that's that distribution list should also include the department. Because the department, if it goes to Brian, the department, or any member of the department, then the town is maintaining backups of data that doesn't rely on our personal emails. So
yeah, send it. You know what? And this is not to. It's not, I guess it's only 10:50. Send it to the clerk, but don't send it to the town, because if you send it to the town,
well,
then it's ex parte.
Okay, excuse me.
Just send it to the clerk.
We copied Brian Bannon in there, who's the clerk.
Yeah, and he'll keep a record of it as a.
Yeah, and then their email servers get backed up, and that is then part of the
then we can
part of the
find it.
record.
Right. But as I was saying earlier, I like the way we've set this up, and it was set up before I got here. But it's good because if you treat the town like an applicant, like an interested party, and not, you know, the DRB, then the planning department has greater flexibility to go talk to applicants and say, this is dumb, and, you know, why don't you guys do this? And if you do this, we'll support the application more aggressively, or whatever it is. You know, so you have those professionals in the town who can provide the board really good information talking to applicants. Because if you treat them like they're the DRB, then it's ex parte, they can't talk to the town, and then everybody's just surprised when they get here, and that's never a good hearing. It's always better if the town can chat with applicants before.
Yeah, and we are in a very unique position in the decisions that are made with the DRB, because, you know, they can go before the environmental board, they can be appealed, they can, all kinds of legal stuff can happen, and the very fact that we, you know, we have to do this amongst ourselves. When you send out that draft, yes, we should all reply all with our responses.
Yeah, I think that's a good course of action. Any word on the application out on Route 9, the gas station? Is there an appeal of that decision?
No, there's no appeal.
And the 45 days has passed, right?
I believe it has.
That's the Sunoco gas station on Western Avenue?
I think so.
Oh, yes,
You
the
mean
one
that
you
one or
wanted
another
to
one?
expand
No, that
it.
one. Yeah.
I missed that one. I didn't.
Yeah,
I had no idea what happened. It's,
No,
it's
you weren't
currently
here.
closed.
I think the appeal period has passed on that.
Yeah.
One of the two gas stations.
Yeah, he wanted to expand it.
Any other matters before the board?
An adjournment, maybe?
Yeah, no. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.